Welcome back to Cinema Boulevard. My name is Daniel McGregor Hoyer,
And my name is Matthew Ha.
and let me tell you, I'm wicked exhausted, man.
Is it that time of year with FIFA?
Oh yeah, that time of year. I mean, first time photographing FIFA, but I don't know. It's been interesting down here. It's been crazy. Argentinians running amok, but still a good group of people. Like I was telling you before, I was at a festival, like trying to get shots of people celebrating or whatever. And it was like an Argentinian called like a Banderazzo. And I'm like,
Rosso.
yeah, I get down to Dallas and all of a sudden I'm like put into like a crowd crunch for like an hour and a half.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's like you're in a giant mosh pit. They're great people. They actually helped me through to get to the spots I wanted to get to.
That's nice.
But yeah, like they're great people. Even if like my limited Spanish vocabulary, they were very helpful. I just had to use words like get myself out here. It's like aquí. It's like, I was like, oh, you want help out? It's like, yeah, see. Yeah, so it's like I'm using Spanish words that my mom would teach me when I was like young, but we're out of it now. 4 more games left to go though, so we'll see how it all goes. But let's talk about this AI thing. I guess before we jump into the film about it, well, at least commenting on it, I think that it's good to sort of talk about that there was recent news of A24 like investing in some sort of AI creative sort of thing. Like you probably have more details than I do, but
Yeah, so I just have this Variety article up. So apparently Google and A24, they're partnering to develop essentially tools for filmmakers that are powered by AI. It's apparently like a $75 million deal. So it's a lot of money. And it definitely has a lot of the internet divided. There are a lot of people that are ridiculing A24, others are kind of indifferent. I guess we should clarify that this is not generative AI, so we're not going to see fully AI A24 films, but they are essentially they're using the tools to assist with the filmmaking process. It's very similar to the controversy with The Brutalist, how what was it like Adrian Brody's accent was not what was it like it wasn't entirely AI generated, but they used AI to sort of sweeten his accent, right?
yeah, because Hungarian is notably one of the toughest accents to nail, and
So essentially
they're obviously
ADR then.
yeah, pretty much. And I don't think it took away from his performance at all.
No.
But I do. But it is interesting, like the reaction to it, and it's like honestly, I could barely tell it made the film. It didn't really do much to like really change my opinion on the film. So, but
Yeah. I think there's also something with like the production designer too using AI to well not like generative AI but like creating the storyboards like concept art and then feeding it into AI to basically come up with more results. So it was a lot of pre-production that they used
yeah,
in The Brutalist
yeah,
at least.
and I think it's like and people might hate me for this because for one, I'm not necessarily pro AI. Um, I think in more cases, like, AI is a very confusing thing right now for a lot of people. I mean, so you gotta realize, like, AI has existed. I mean, practically Siri is AI, just
Oh yeah, it is AI.
non-generative. Yeah, because, Siri is limited to, like, only certain commands. The same goes for Alexa, with Amazon. But so AI has always existed. And obviously we're having a giant boom with that technology right now. And, there's been examples, obviously, we see across like the internet that's been annoying to see. Like, there's like this one, it's like something made by the Steam engine or something where it's like they do like, and they bring on all these like intellectual characters from like Invincible, like, and or whatever, and they like do like a version of John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, and it's like,
What?
yeah, like what the hell is this? And it's like, AI slop is fascinating, but it's obviously something I don't endorse.
No,
Um, like
certainly not.
yeah, it's like with the Will Smith eating spaghetti thing or whatever. It's I don't know. It's weird, but regardless, AI is here to stay. And I think there's going to be filmmakers that are going to be using it in a way that is going to help their films. But the thing we got to realize with it is that it should not be the primary thing to make your film.
No, yeah.
Yeah, like because to be honest, like using it for storyboards, like that's not a bad idea. Because the thing is, you're only like the thing is, it's helping you visualize something, which isn't a bad idea. Obviously, the big drawback is it does take the job away from storyboard artists who work hard to get the storyboards made. I mean, what you could like look at like the classic Disney Renaissance behind the scenes stuff and like realize like wow, they actually hand painted a lot of these concept arts. Um, and probably a little different for live action than it is animation, but like there's a lot of like art to
Oh,
storyboarding,
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and so I think it's good to use it in but only with like a grain of salt. But I wouldn't say like use it for every aspect of filmmaking. I think it's smart to use it in pre-production. But obviously limit it. Like that's the thing about it. It's like it cannot be the reason why your film is successful. I mean, The Brutalist wasn't successful because of the AI voice ADR thing that they did to Adrian Brody. The Brutalist was successful because, Brady Corbett made a great film with a
Mhm.
great and immaculate story with great performances that even with the AI voice ADR stuff implemented into Adrian Brody's accent, it still helped. Like it still helps that like the rest of the film is great. And I think people, obviously are freaking out about it. People are freaking out about Scorsese endorsing AI programs, but to be honest, it's like they're trying to find ways to use it in the process, but use it in a way that doesn't necessarily take away from the art itself. So I think that's where you got to sort of take it with a grain of salt with all this information. We don't know what A24 is doing with it yet. I mean, I think the details are pretty vague, but what can you do?
Yeah, I think that doesn't help because this does seem like a very early start. So it's not like tomorrow we're going to see A24 use AI in whatever film they got in post production right now. So it just seems like this is the start of it. So I don't think that helps their case because it was a lot of buzzwords that can mean literally anything. And I think the big thing, my sort of stance on is that just I don't want it to take away from like the human touch necessarily. Like
Hmm.
even though in this case it is more of a tool that should not come at the cost of a human being's job essentially. So that's sort of my take. What I don't think helped A24's case is that this article, the announcement came out about a week ago, but then as of when we're recording this, as of last Friday, they actually came out and defended their stance. And admittedly, the analogy they used probably wasn't the best, but essentially they said something along the lines of, we'd rather have a seat at the table than on the sidelines. Essentially saying, you could take that in a variety of different ways. I think for some that are more against it, they're just saying, like, oh, AI is hot right now. Let's strike while the iron's hot and make a lot of money off of this. Which, yeah, it does seem like they're kind of capitalizing on the fact that AI is just being more and more prevalent. But I don't know. My whole I have a very indifferent stance to this, and in general
Hmm.
with AI, like most people, generative AI sucks. Like I'm not defending that, but with it as like a filmmaking tool, it is still a very gray area, and I don't want to just be like, oh, we have to embrace it because it's here to stay, or like, oh, no, I want to reject it. I'm like right in the middle because I still think we're at this gray area where it's hard to make a stance right now. We still, it's still new. So I don't want to commit myself in one direction or the other. But it is also very funny that I think Kane Parsons, he said in an interview that he wishes like AI would disappear or something like that
Hmm.
during the backrooms press. And then meanwhile, A24 goes ahead and makes an AI deal, even
Yeah.
though his film made what is like the highest grossing film for that studio now.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
it
sure
is. It
I
outgrows
wonder
Marvel
how he's
Supreme.
feeling about this. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, it's it's interesting that this is, all happening. And I gotta preface again and I don't endorse AI in a sense that it can should be used as like something that's gonna help create a movie quicker for you. I mean, what
No, yeah.
you seen all those like really dumb AI slop movies that people like say, oh, like this looks much better than like The Dark Knight or whatever, and it's like you could point out so many inconsistencies in how it's made. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't look good. Like, oh, like the skin tones are so real. And it's like, no.
No.
I mean, no, it's come a long way. I mean, I know people were making fun of it with the Will Smithing spaghetti thing, and now it's like, wow, it looks better, but it still looks uncanny. Like, there's
It's
just,
it's frightening how fast it evolved though. That was only 4 years ago.
yeah, it's crazy. So, but I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens with it. I mean, I think A24, like, they're obviously trying to find ways to capitalize on that idea. But you gotta sort of obviously with the details being so vague, I think it is what is freaking people out a lot. And you know, like I said, it could be used a little bit in the process, but don't try to use it in a way where it takes away from the human creativity that is involved. So I think that's sort of like it's cautionary. I think that's what you have to be with the stuff now. But what can you do?
Yeah, unfortunately for A24 too, if they were didn't matter if they were as vague as possible or as descriptive and transparent as possible, it was almost a lose-lose because even with just that brief announcement where they didn't really disclose like necessarily what they were doing, it was just sort of like, oh, this is what we're putting out, like partnering to create AI tools to assist filmmakers. People are already saying in the comments, oh, we're boycotting A24 then. And I know like on the Reddit threads for A24, the people were like canceling their A24 membership just because they didn't want to associate with them supporting AI. And I don't know. I definitely understand that people are very passionate about that about AI in one way or another. It's definitely a hot button topic, and it's just interesting to see people's reactions. I think overall it was mostly negative, and that led a lot more people to believe that they were doing generative AI stuff. But then when I was reading into like, oh, it's not generative AI, it's an AI assisted tool. I still understand why people may not be pleased about that, though.
Yep, for sure. I mean, we'll see how this long this boycott lasts. I remember what there was like a whole bunch of I was like 2015, 2016, I believe. It was when the Hateful Eight come out and obviously off topic, but it's when Quentin Tarantino like said he was said something that was anti-police or something, and then like all of a sudden the police like
Oh
they were
yeah.
gonna boycott the screening, and it didn't affect the film at all. um,
Well, people
but
were saying that about the Brutos. Like the Brutos should be disqualified
yeah, and
from
it's like
the awards.
yeah, and this was before the Academy implemented the new rules, but yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a gray area. Like you said, so we're sort of in the money right now of like trying to figure out what's going on right now. But and apparently Pixar is too. Recently Toy Story 5
Oh, good
came out.
segue.
Yep, really good segue. It's a story about toy story involving toys story. I've been watching some Rick and Morty again, and midway, like right
Is
season
there
20.
five of them?
I don't know. There's more seasons now, but I'm implementing the Roy and style voice acting before he got canceled. But yeah, Toy Story 5 came out. A Pixar sequel nobody asked for, but somehow it's gonna still make money. Um, and yeah, it's talking basically it follows, instead of Woody or Buzz, it follows Jessie. It was the female protagonist of the past like few films, and sort of showing her like as they're trying to like adjust to the presence of a iPad called Lilypad, which oddly enough gives me like throwbacks to like Leapfrog back in the day. You remember
Yeah,
Leapfrog,
I
right?
do remember Leapfrog. I had one of those.
Yeah,
Or
I think we all did.
off topic, but before we get into the plot, do you remember the Leapster game system? It was like their take on the Nintendo DS.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it
I
was a
I had
very
one of
cheapo
those.
version. Oh
Yeah,
man.
I there was like a Cars game that where you learned like math fractions and stuff, and there was a Madagascar game they used to play a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
I might
remember.
still have it. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. Mine's probably long gone. But
yeah.
yeah,
I'm
it's
sorry.
basic. Yeah, it's. I don't know. I got my opinions on the Toy Story franchise right now, but I guess what has been your take on this whole franchise so far?
I mean, I love Toy Story. It's one of the most nostalgic film franchises for me. I I wasn't I wasn't born to see Toy Story 1 and 2 in theaters. I did see the re-release when they brought it into 3D, but I had the movies on DVD and I watched them all the time. I remember I was so excited for Toy Story 3. I think I was like 9 when that came out, and I remember I saw it in IMAX 3D with my parents. For some reason, I was like, we need to see it in the biggest screen possible. And I just remember being so happy to see a Toy Story movie on the big screen, like a new one, basically. And yeah, for a while, it's like, oh, Pixar has this perfect little trilogy. And then they decided to make another one. And so, in fairness, I haven't seen Toy Story 4 since theaters. I actually like that one. I don't love it. It's definitely nowhere near the original trilogy, but Toy Story I've noticed is one of those franchises where every time they like bring it back, it does show that there is still at least some bit of gas in the tank. And even before Toy Story 4, they did the Toy Story short films, and those worked well. And I thought, man, if they were to continue Toy Story, this is a better way to do it than make Toy Story 5. But then in 2023, they announced Toy Story 5, and I remember thinking, why are we doing a fifth one? What are they going to do? Because if Toy Story 3 had a definitive conclusion, Toy Story 4, it ended, spoilers, it ended with Woody and Buzz, or the gang, basically separating, going off their separate ways. I'm like, what are they going to do for the fifth one then? Is he going to come back? That's just going to undercut everything. And and then we heard that it was going to be sort of a commentary on toys and tech, and I just remember thinking, oh, this is sounds like it's going to be really preachy. I can predict the message even just based on this one announcement. I think I messaged you actually when the concept art came out. I was just like, I just know immediately this is going to be a phone bad movie. So not to say I was dreading Toy Story 5, but let's just say my anticipation for it was fairly low going in. I didn't go in wanting to hate it. I went in as optimistic as possible. And to be fair, I do think, to my surprise, I think Toy Story 5, when watching it and when I left, I could tell that there was a reason why Pixar wanted to make it. And it did feel sincere enough, even though the messaging and the way they approached that seemed very simplistic and repetitive. I could tell that maybe obviously, well, not maybe, money obviously is a reason why they did this, but there was more than that. I feel like it wasn't like the Mario Galaxy movie where it's like, oh, we can scrape by and it'll make money. This one, it felt like there was an actual story because it was directed by Andrew Stanton, who's made some of the best Pixar films like Finding Nemo and Wall-E. So he's very talented. He's a very talented director and writer. But my problem with Toy Story 5 overall is that, one, it is still unnecessary at the end of the day. But two, this film was just all about the message, about the toys and tech, and everything else seemed more supplementary. Because the best thing about Toy Story as a franchise is that there are a lot of heartfelt messages about friendship, growing up, and sort of the idea of abandonment and like coming to terms with the fact that, yeah, you can have your loved one, whether you're a toy or a human, but it's like sometimes inevitably it could split and it weirdly gets existential. And in Toy Story 5, they sort of play around with those ideas of how with the in the age of like the internet, social media, TikTok, Twitch streaming, AI, and all that. It's like we're so connected to technology and dependent on that that we've lost touch with the physicality and that purposeful meaning of of play and physical toys. And for a family watching it and for kids watching it, it's not a bad message at all. But my problem is that the way they approach the message is just so substandard, basic, and not really challenging. And don't get me wrong, like I'm not trying to say that Toy Story was necessarily like a a delusion or a dire level philosophical like study of the human condition or anything like that. But considering it was more meant to be for families, it does get pretty emotional. And it felt like this film just wasn't at the same standard. It felt like everything was very rushed and kind of just formulaic at the same time. It doesn't have necessarily like there's nothing really awful about the film, but it just everything feels weaker. Like the characterization is weaker, the story beats feel weaker, the comedy feels weaker. So overall, I was just watching the film a bit underwhelmed. I was never necessarily upset, but I was just very much like, this is fine. And in any other cases, that wouldn't necessarily be a terrible thing, but this is Toy Story. There's a very, in my opinion, a very high standard. This is like the crown jewel of the Pixar filmography. So to come out of one of these films and just like, oh, it was okay, was a little disheartening. It's not. It's nowhere. It's not a bad film. If anything, it's super close to being a great film at some instances, and we could probably go more in depth. Like I think there are some emotional moments that are pretty effective, and some of the new side characters are fun. But yeah, it is the weakest one, and that's pretty much all I gotta say. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like you gotta kind of like look at like the history of technology and how like Toy Story has had like such an impact in it. I think because when the original came out, it was monumental. Not just for animation, but for the film industry as a whole, because computer uh generated animation was still very new at the time. I mean, it's been used in the past. Like Disney has been experimenting with it a lot, and of course the Industrial Light of Magic has been. I mean, it's practically what built, and that's what sort of built into the identity of Pixar at the time. Um, but I do, so I think it's like it does sort of have like this interesting like relationship with technology. This franchise has managed to stay the test of time because of that. Um, and you know, one obviously is really good. I think it just kind of shows like a lot of the time like animation wise, obviously it is a bit dated, but it's forgivable just because it's one of the first. And then two comes out. Two is great. I think two is probably my personal favorite. I think that's the one where I think everything's done at least near perfect. With that one. Three was a good send off. I think it's has flaws, but I think it was a good like end to Andy story. And then I hear four is coming out, and I completely avoided it until like last week.
Oh, you hadn't
And
seen it until last week?
yeah, yeah, and
Oh
because
wow.
this was like I gotta be honest, like it was at a point when I was so fatigued with any part of like Disney's branding that like I completely avoided everything. I mean, because what Endgame comes out and it's like, okay, I don't have much else to do with this after a while. Rise of Skywalker like ends everything Star Wars on a sour note outside the Mandalorian, of course. And so but like in terms of like the output from Disney Animation and Pixar, like I really avoided it for a while. I mean, there's been some obviously I watched like Soul, but I didn't think like Toy Story needed to continue. Um, like because it ended so perfectly. And I think having these characters sort of live lives in short films is probably the right idea, just because you can really put those stories anywhere. Like you don't have to like worry about continuity or whatever. You could just like, yeah, yeah, have some fun with these characters for a while. I mean, they're already left their impact. I mean, it's why they're what almost like what 30 years later, and people are still talking. Yeah, yeah, almost. Like, yeah, we're getting to like a point where Toy Story has like become such a big part of our like pop culture. And I did see four, and it's like, yeah, okay, like it actually is pretty solid. I think it is emotionally effective in terms of its narrative beats. It is a bit sloppy, but I think for what it was going for, it really did something different, which is what they set out to do. And it's like, okay, that should be fine. Just end it right there. But then five comes out and it's like it's time to get butts and seats. That's pretty much what it is. And I go in and it's like, oh, okay. It's like there's parts of it that are entertaining. I mean, I think the part of the film I like the most is like the Buzz Lightyears or whatever. Like that's pretty hilarious. But and the message is hammered down a lot. I think I mean it's an important message, especially those for families and having the concern about technology and how it's impacting kids now. I think it is important to like watch this film if have like those issues, if you have kids. Um and are worried about them being glued to the devices because I oddly enough, like the best part of this movie is how much they gave like Bonnie a character. Like that's actually one thing I wasn't anticipating because like Ford they barely give her a character. And I know I feel because they're like, oh, Andy never really had a character. He sort of did just through like his room and just like his interests. Like even if you don't see Andy that often, you still say like, oh yeah, like you can kind of get a gauge at who this kid's what this kid's personality is like just through like the backgrounds and the toys he has. But with Bonnie, it's like, you never got that instance in the fourth film. It's like, okay, she's just fucking avoiding Woody. Like that's all, that is all she's doing. Like, oh, yeah, I don't need the Carl boy or whatever. I'll use this fork thing instead. But they give Bonnie so much character here, and you kind of get to see how technology has affected her and just emotionally. Like you see her being a trance by the lily pad for like when she first gets it, then all of a sudden like realizing like the issues with the technology and just like how it is so emotionally like jarring in some cases. Like you think you have friends, but they're just all online, and it's like nah, they're nah, it's not working. And so I like that, you know, but outside of that, it's like the narrative's weak. I don't think Jessie works that well as a main character. I think she can work. She has a lot of emotional baggage for sure, but in Toy Story 2, like you saw her go through her arc in that film. You saw her actually like change over the course of that story, but still maintain that personality. Here, it's like for some reason, Joan Cusack, you could tell she's been voicing this character for a long time, but she just sounds so tired, oddly enough, and then it's like also I just have a little trouble like engaging with her whole story here, like because I thought she already came to peace with like the whole Emily subplot. I thought she came to peace with it, and she just didn't. Like, it's like, okay, we're gonna retread it again. It's like when Toy Story 2, and it's like, oh, is it gonna be more emotionally effective to see where she actually came from? And it's like maybe, but it's not. She's not a gripping character in this one. Really nobody is outside Bonnie, oddly enough. Um, I mean, I think because like Woody's just pointless throughout the whole thing. Buzz, like give him the dumb little proposal arc you saw in like those Disney animated films. Like, oh, is he gonna be able to propose to her? But he keeps getting like cocked blocked every instance or whatever. It's like really, it's really annoying. It's like, and then like they just throw the rest of the toys in the garage, and it's like the thing I liked about the first Story, and I don't want to try to draw on for too long, is like there was a camaraderie between all of them, but now it's just like there's just zero camaraderie at all. It's just like the main three. Like at this point, just make them solo films. Like if you're gonna call yourselves Toy Story, like do more than just like, latching on to like these very personal arcs that could work if they were their own solo movie. And I don't know. It's like I missed the whole camaraderie. Like that's what made the first three work, is that camaraderie. But uh,
Yeah, I, I I think there's a lot that you brought up that are a lot of good points. That for one, with the characters, the problem with Toy Story now is because it's been going on for 30 years. There's so many characters in this franchise that it's kind of hard to utilize all of them. It's almost like the Simpsons movie problem, where it's like, because I like the Simpsons movie, it's really funny, and they're gonna do a second one too, which I don't even know what they're gonna do. But there's so many characters in that show where it's nearly impossible to have everyone get equal screen time, basically. So inevitably some get sacrificed. Toy Story is the same way now, and I think also it doesn't help that a lot of those actors are getting older too. So they might, I don't know if it's just age is also another thing too, but this movie introduces a lot of new characters too, which I will say I do like the new characters. I like basically what happens in the film, because they get kind of, was it the lily pad device gets introduced, and then she tries to take over, basically get all of Bonnie's physical toys out of her life. And so I'm trying to remember how this happened, because I saw this a while ago,
oh yeah,
but
it's like
they get
she
like kind of
went.
separated, or
Yeah, it was like Jesse and Bullseye like snuck over to go to like a sleepover or something, and
that's
then
it. Yeah,
yeah, stepped out of the car, and then like they get somehow they read the address on like Jesse's like foot that was like the original
which they
house. So you
never
can
established up until
yeah,
this point.
yeah, they never did. It did lead to
Yeah,
like a funny joke about like the old people driving, but
yeah,
that's about it.
yeah.
But yeah,
Oh,
that's
and
how she ended up over there. So
yeah, thank God that Emily just so happens to live somewhat close to Bonnie, which that's there's this is another one of those movies where, because the franchise has gone on for so long, they sort of like retcon and rewrite a lot of stuff in a way that I don't really understand. So the big thing with Emily's house basically is that, remember how in Toy Story 2 during that montage it shows her playing on the swing on the tree, but the tree is literally in her like yard of the house, but you never see the yard or the house in the second film. And then remember when she gets donated it as an adult, it's back at that same tree, but then she like drives up to it, implying that it's a long distance. But like, why did she drive to her like yard? Basically, I understand she lives on like a farm, but the farm didn't look that big. I don't know, but that's besides the point. That's a nitpick. But um, I do like how, okay. Oh, sorry, I'm like all over the place now. The toys, the new toys, because it isn't Emily that lives in that house anymore. It's a new character, a new girl named Blaze, and who's sort of like basically a horse girl, I think. Like she's into like the horses and the cowgirl stuff. And then she has her own abandoned toys, which are a lot of these almost early 2000s Tamagotchi type toys. And I thought those characters were actually a lot of fun. But I mean, I loved Conan O'Brien in the movie as the Smarty Pants. He was hilarious, honestly. The film's humor sort of ebbs and flows, but majority of the laughs came from him. I thought he did an excellent job. Further proof that Conan O'Brien is a national treasure and basically makes almost anything better. So, um, but to go back to Jessie, I actually like Jessie in this film. It's nice to see her in the title role, because I don't know if you ever saw the Toy Story Halloween special, which I don't think is necessarily amazing, but I think from what I remember, she took on a title role in that, and I thought she did. It was nice to see her in that role, because I think she carries a lot of the emotional weight of the franchise too, and with her sort of dealing with the abandonment thing, I do think it is fairly effective, because the whole thing is that she essentially throughout the series is still riddled with that anxiety. Basically, I remember there's a brief scene in Toy Story 3 where she very minorly starts kind of hyperventilating at the thought of being abandoned again. But what kind of undercuts that, and I don't necessarily understand, is that from what I remember in 3, it's been a while since I've seen it, she's kind of already come to terms with the fact that Andy has grown up and move on. But then in this film, in Toy Story 5, the fact that she's going to get replaced by this tech is like this big shock to the senses, as if she wasn't necessarily already quote forgotten or given away by Andy. That's the timeline in this movie doesn't really add up, and that's what kind of confuses me and almost undercuts the emotional arc for that reason. One thing that I remember was really concerned going in was the fact that Emily was being brought back in, because the whole thing about Toy Story 2 that made the emotional moment work so well is the fact that it's all communicated in that one scene, the When She Loved Me sequence, which is one of the best sequences that Pixar has ever done. It's incredibly emotional, it's incredibly poignant, and that's really all you needed. And the film doesn't necessarily reveal more of the lore. They do show Emily a bit more, which I thought was I thought it would have been a really interesting creative choice if they still kept her more secluded, basically, because we see her full face. And that sort of took away from that mystery, which I don't want to go right into the ending, but there was a part of my head that's thinking like, man, I wish they didn't show Emily's full face until a certain point. And then the emotional moment, I think, would have been a lot more effective. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like I don't know. I mean, I can understand like a character like already like still dealing with like this level of grief. Um, and yeah, I mean, I like Jesse as a character. But I don't know, just like something about the way this is written, it doesn't make the arc that fulfilling to me. Like I just think it just wanted to like I could see what it's wanting to do. Um, but it just sort of just doesn't really mesh that well with the whole technology plot that they're dwelling on so much. And I just sort of like feel like that the whole film, like, it dwells on the message so much that like it's just a little weak from a narrative standpoint.
Yeah,
And
the film does stumble a lot because the
mhm,
message, it seemed like the message was the priority, so everything else felt secondary.
mhm. Yeah, and it's you know, I and it just sort of feels like it's you know, there's like times where it just sort of felt like it was like a mini series at some points. Like not in the way like Moana 2 or The Mandalorian and Grogu were, but more or less just in the way where it kind of felt very low stakes, which it's okay to have like a low stakes plot line. I mean, I'm not expecting Toy Story to like necessarily have like these giant maximalist moments of filmmaking. I mean, that's not what these films are about. And at the end of the day, I mean, initially they're more about like the emotional climaxes than they are about like the action packed ones. Um, but I do think like there's just times where just like it really just felt bored. I mean, outside of like the Conan character who is hilarious. And just like how they use like these old things, old technology or whatever and just like say trying to find like a use for that technology in some cases, it really just didn't feel like that the film really flowed all that well. Um, I mean, like I said, the only thing like I things I enjoyed were bits of the humor, and then like the animation is still pretty solid, all things considered. Um, and it still looks pretty good, but like it's just boring, you know.
Yeah, yeah. The animation is really interesting because in some ways this film weirdly does kind of do. Not, I wouldn't say it is an experimental film, but it does play around with the stylization. Like this is the first Pixar film
Hmm.
where they actually embraced a stylized art style, which they're going to do next year with their film Gato. But basically there's scenes in the film that take on almost like this crayon drawn art style. It almost looks like the Yoshi's Island Super Nintendo game that is essentially the visualization of the playtime that Bonnie has with the toys. And I thought that was super, super clever. Like in a weird way, I almost wish the entire movie looked like that because it was really distinct and really clever to see that, because the only time they showed the visualization of the playtime in the Toy Story series was the opening of Toy Story 3, where it's like the Western train chase. But that was in the same art style because at the time no one embraced stylization in computer animated films, basically. So I really liked that. And not to say that the animation in Toy Story 5 is bad. If anything, it still looks really nice, but it almost seemed like people have pointed this out online too. The lighting definitely felt a little like flatter because in comparison to Toy Story 4, like Toy Story 4, there's some insanely detailed, hyper realistic animation. Like the opening scene, I still remember just the detail of the rain when the RC car is like stuck in the mud, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing when I saw that from the theater. My mind was just blown, thinking this looks amazing. And I never really got the sense of that in Toy Story 5. I was just like, oh, it looks nice, it's good. And but the lighting definitely felt a little more, I wouldn't say grayscale, but it wasn't as pronounced with the shadows and all that. And I think it was slightly stylistic where they're trying to emulate the look of the older films, obviously because those were made at an older time where they couldn't really be as dynamic. So I think they were trying to harken back to that, but it did sort of take away from the richness of how far the animation has come. Like even comparison to something like Hoppers, which is a little more cartoony, that one I think had a lot more dynamic lighting than Toy Story 5, which is weird. So I want to like undercut the animation because, like I said, it's good. It looks really nice. You can tell a lot of time and care went into it, but it felt a little. It was the only time in a Toy Story film where I was just thinking something looks slightly off, and I don't understand.
Yeah, it's like it looked a little weird in some instances. I know there's like parts of it that worked okay. Like I think where where Woody comes back and you have like the shadow of him over the toys, like that is a good use of it. But there's like just times where it's hard to get a grasp on the dimension of where everybody is in the house or in that room. So it all just sort of just doesn't look as good as it usually is. I mean, I think by far like the best animated one is still 4.
I'd
'Cause I
agree.
think
Yeah.
yeah, could they really embrace the photorealism with that one. But here it's just like it kind of feels like just a normal. It's high effort. I'm not saying it isn't high effort, but I think there's just like stuff that's a little more noticeable in this one than it is with like that one. But what can you do? Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I think it's like if you're gonna continue Toy Story at this point, but they should have just stuck with the shorts, man. Like, I'm not saying like these characters can't translate to like film form. I mean, they could. They just you would have Lightyear.
Oh God, I forgot about
But
Lightyear.
yeah, but I think I think they could translate the film form, but I think the story needs to just be a little bit better. Because
Yeah.
like I said, this just felt like a TV special. It's like you're putting all the work into this animation and this hyper stylized like play sequences, and I'm not saying trying to undercut the animators, but it's like you gotta like find the better way to really make it better in some cases. From a story standpoint. Because even if like Forrest faults, like because I think like the trying to go from one narrative beat to the other just felt a little sloppy to me, and like there are some characters like Buzz who were like dumbed down a lot.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
But yeah, but I can at least say that from a narrative beat, like if you were like to write it down on a script outline, you can sort of see what they're going for with these like emotional moments. Um, and they still satisfy even if like it has a little bit of shaky ground. So it works, and the whole conflict that Woody's dealing with, like is very interesting. Like okay, like a little more existential, trying to find like meaning in life in some cases. Like yeah, it's a little more like introspective. And I guess like I'm not saying Jesse needs to go on that level of arc, but I kind of felt like there could have been better ways to make it more fulfilling. Because it just I don't know, this didn't feel quite as satisfying. Like the emotional payoff didn't pay off for me. Like oh yeah, it's you're just discovering more about an owner, like your first owner, and I can get it, but I don't know. It just isn't that emotionally gripping. It's like, and I don't know if it's like it's the character, but maybe more or less it's the script. But I don't know. It's
the
it's
the
weird.
big thing about Toy Story 5, and this is the big sticking point that I'll say, is that I can tell if it just felt rushed. And I think Andrew Stanton, he said in an interview too that the whole thing came about in the span of 3.5 years, which for a Pixar production is very fast. And you can tell because I there's just a lot of times where it seemed like they had the message and they really wanted to enforce that because they knew that this is timely. And that in that regard, I don't think the film will necessarily feel dated because technology is so present. So I don't think this film is not going to be like Space Jam 2, where it's just loaded with references to the point where it'll be dated by the next year. I don't think Toy Story 5 will be like that, but you could tell there's like we need to get this movie out in the next few years because technology is just growing and this is a problem that we're witnessing. It needs to come out and be timely. But then everything else felt sacrificed because the whole thing with the buzzes when that starts and they go off and then they're trying to find whatever what, like Star Command is, and then the whole time it's cutting back and forth. And I'm just thinking, how is this connecting to the main plot? And then I remembered originally the villains of this film. They announced this at D23 a few years ago. The villains of Toy Story 5 was going to be the Buzz Army. This is before Lily Pad was even a thing. So you could tell that Toy Story 5 was basically two drafts sort of Frankenstein together to be like, okay, we need to connect this somehow because we're already we're past the point of no return. We can't restart over. So like, okay, we need to just find a way to make it work. And it's not incompetent. There are certainly worse examples of this happening in film productions. So at least there is some through line, but the setup to it is really, really clunky and just not smooth at all. Like the film works more in the third act, but building up to that, it's insanely repetitive the with the buzz coming back and forth with the buzz, which is it's entertaining, but the whole time you're thinking, how is this going to build up to the end? And then the whole lily pad stuff, it's a lot of the same things with overtaking the tech. And then even the emotional stuff with Bonnie sort of felt like it was retreading what was done with Anxiety and Inside Out, almost how sort of the effects of, I know Inside Out wasn't necessarily a tech film, but just talking about how surroundings can play into either anxiety, depression, lack of self-confidence. And it's just, we're retreading a lot of these similar plot points for the human characters in Pixar films. Like it's starting with Turning Red. I feel like they've just been like going back to the same idea. It's like, do something new with it. It's really frustrating. And the weird thing is that rather infamously, Toy Story 2's production, they restarted like a year before that movie came out. They totally scrapped it and basically had to speed run their way to get to the finished product. And lo and behold, they made a film that was arguably better than the first one. Like they pulled it off like miraculously, and
Yeah,
that just goes to show.
yeah, and it almost didn't happen
Yeah, they
because
almost
like yeah, they
deleted the
deleted the
film.
film, and then like luckily one of them, I think it was like her name was Starla. Um, no, Darla, I believe. Yeah, because they named the character after her in Finding Nemo, but like she apparently was on maternity leave and she kept like a copy of the finished product on her hard drive.
Yeah,
And that's how Toy Story 3 became to be.
yeah, and then Pixar let her go like 23 years later. Yeah, awful decision. But anyway, so it goes to show that it doesn't matter like how quick you are to the even if it's a rush production doesn't necessarily mean your production is cursed as long as you have good storytelling instincts and there is this love and sincerity. I'm not saying Toy Story 5 is insincere, but it just the mentality felt wrong because the big thing about Toy Story was the fact that yeah, there were obviously messages that were good for children, parents, and general audiences to see, but that wasn't the focus. The focus was on the characters, that heart and camaraderie, and that's what made the franchise really work. And we both of us we've primarily been negative, and I don't know what necessarily your general consensus is on the film. For me, I don't dislike this film because I think there is still a lot of good, and maybe we can go more into the last third. I don't know, spoil if you want to say spoilers. The movie's been out for a while.
Yeah, probably spoilers. Yeah. So, but yeah, spoilers
Yeah,
from here on out.
yeah.
Go
The
ahead.
the last third really does save the film because even though it doesn't have necessarily the emotional poignancy of three or even four, but what it builds up to with Jessie and how she's essentially like at her at her lowest point, basically, to the fact that it's like no matter what era of tech, what era it is, no matter who the person is, there always this fear of abandonment that inevitably happens to some degree with a toy, which is why she wanted to be preserved in the museum in Toy Story 2. Like she already had to have a sense of, I guess, like a conclusion, basically. That's the right word. But then it's later revealed that underneath that tree, basically, she discovers like the initials or the name Jessie, like Jessie and Emily, basically. And inside is this lunchbox where it's revealed that Emily, presumably now an older woman or an elderly lady, basically named her kid after Jessie, and essentially saying that, like, yeah, even though she quote moved on from her, she never forgot her. And that I remember like saying the thing like, wow, that's like really, really effective. But I just to go back to sort of my complaints about how they showed Emily in the opening, I just remember thinking like, man, if you didn't show her face up until that moment when she was an adult, just imagine how much more poignant that would have been. The fact that even though Jessie hadn't seen her in decades, but still remembered so much because of her experiences being a toy left so much of an impact. Like imagine if we went along with her, didn't see that until that moment. I think that the emotional moment would have been even better, but it still works overall. I'm just like, oh, that's really, really sweet. And that sort of gives her this sense of, I guess, confidence and satisfaction. And
Yeah,
also
I
the
mean,
fact that,
yeah, I mean, I guess like I think it has the pieces there. It does, but I think it's how they use it. I don't know. It's just like because like I don't know. I feel like there is a way to make that payoff work, but I think the fact that they're I don't know. But the fact that film is like whole entire. It's like what you get. It can't like I said. It's the TV show thing. It's like an A plot and a B plot. Like but she doesn't really deal with lily pad half the time. Buzz and
well,
Woody do, and
no, she sort of like, doesn't she have sort of a quarrel towards the beginning, but then they're like separate for most of it.
mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah, they
in a way, they almost treat the tech and the toys as like almost different social groups. Like there's this like minor prejudice, which I thought like, is this going to go down like the Zootopia route where it's going to be some like prejudicial metaphor? They sort of do at some point, but then they just kind of abandon it. Like remember that one scene when Jesse is basically saying like you're just like, kind of like knocks over the smarty pants toys. Like you're tech, you're all bad or something. And then she immediately apologizes like, oh, I'm sorry. It's like
no progression.
yeah,
No
not
progression.
much progression, and you could tell like that's sort of highlighting the nature of the rush script, and also kind of like what I was saying. The movie doesn't say necessarily tech is bad, but also I was afraid like, oh, is this really going to go down the route of like, oh, tech isn't necessarily entirely bad; it just needs to coexist, and that's sort of how the ending or the final message is. Which I get it; it's for like it's you're not we're not going to see a Toy Story movie where it's like Terminator 2 where it's like the tech is melting or anything like that. It's like no, it's like of course there needs to be something more appropriate, but it's obvious that there's a point when the lily pad character basically feels like guilt, realizing like, oh, I caused Bonnie all this emotional like not trauma, but just like made her feel worse basically, and then she tries to run away too. But then he's like, "Oh no, you're actually not all that bad," and he's like, "Oh, we're friends now." So it's very predictable overall, and I guess not to say the other Toy Story films were like unpredictable Sixth Sense level plot twists, but it felt more natural. It didn't feel like they were just like, "Oh, we need to get to this point." There was a natural progression. Like the problem with Toy Story 5 is that there really isn't natural progressions necessarily. It just seems kind of segmented and kind of what you said, like TV show paced, where oh, segmented. So
Yeah, and it's just like, well, I would love for Pixar to try to like make a Toy Story film with a really realist perspective. Like, can you imagine like them trying to take a perspective that isn't so centrist and like completely goes one way or the other?
yeah,
Like
like
ends up like, no, AI is responsible for us. I don't know if they would do that.
I don't think I don't think so. I don't think in a million years we would see that.
Nah, I don't know.
Um,
Maybe Disney maybe could force them. Who knows?
This is another really dumb nitpick too, but I just found this kind of funny. You know, like in the whole thing about Toy Story is that the toys come alive when the humans aren't around. I know there's some scenes in the earlier films where they sort of tread along those lines where they kind of like the toys have to sort of sneak around the humans when they're like in the same room. But like, my God, there's some scenes in this film where when the toys are moving, like in vehicles or just in really close proximity to the humans, where all I'm thinking is, how are you as a human being not seeing this in your peripheral vision? Like the two that stand out is when Woody and Bullseye escape the car, Bonnie's mom's car. And then I thought the funniest one was when Lily Pad is trying to like move her way into the donation box at that like ice cream stall. And and then what's it like when they come back, Bonnie or mom's just like, oh, where's Lily Pad? Like it's lost. And thinking like, there's no way someone maybe in their mind they're thinking like, oh, someone took the tablet, but obviously we know it's like, okay, it came alive. It had to have come alive at that point. It's it really treads the line of suspension of disbelief where I'm just thinking, this is pushing it. This is really pushing it.
I love. I don't know if you ever watched Meat Canyon at all, but he sort
I've
of
seen some
like does
videos.
like, yeah, like he does like dark twists on like childhood nostalgia or whatever. Um, but he had like this one where like, you know, Andy's like discovering that like the toys are alive and he wants to see it in real life and they show that he's alive. And then like I said, Andy, you now have cancer. And, like
Oh no.
yeah, like Andy just loses it. Well, you have cancer, Andy. But you made me force my hand. But or like the how it should have ended one where like Andy takes the toys and it's like, oh, and we've been alive the whole time. Like, I don't know, I don't know, I kind of like I said, it'll be funny if Pixar tried to do something like that, but they don't. I mean, I don't know, they still try to make a joke about it and forth like the Key and Peele stuffed animals like attacking um the like antique shop owner, but that's as far as
Yeah.
they go. But I don't know. It's I don't know, it's kind of felt like they were trying to grasp for those memory berries. Like especially like, hey, it's good to see Woody and Buzz back together again, arguing, and it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love it when they argue. It's what made the first film great, but it's like, I don't know, like we got so many of scenes with them arguing, you know? Like I'm not saying like you need that. They're not like scenes that aren't funny because they are, but I don't know. It's just like you could just tell they're grasping for straws, like at least to make this into a film. Like I could see it.
I don't think it's
Um.
that they're necessarily grasping for straws, but it's more just the it just didn't seem. I don't even want to say that their heart was in it. It was clear that there was a lot of passion and goodwill put into the project, but I don't know if they just maybe needed. They just needed to take more time with it. Unfortunately, in its effort to be timely, like that's what sort of neutered the project. Like if they like Pixar films can take upwards of 7 years to go from start to finish, and I was thinking like if you had that centralized timeline, yeah, it probably would have worked better for the story, but the message wouldn't hit the same. So I just think the mindset was different for this one, whereas the other ones, even four, which I know a lot of people label as unnecessary, that one you could tell like, oh, the plot was still it felt like a lot smoother from what I remember.
Hmm. Yeah, and this one it's like you could just tell like Disney's like you gotta make it, you gotta make it, and it's like there's an idea there, there's an idea, but it just need to be more time to like let it sit in the oven for a little bit longer. But I don't know. Was it worth trying to get all the Swifties to go see a Disney movie though?
I mean, it didn't matter. This movie was going to make a ton of money regardless because it's Toy
Oh yeah,
Story.
it's already like over 500 million worldwide now. But
Yeah, I
it's
mean, we
like,
shouldn't be surprised by that. It has such a wide appeal.
oh yeah, it does. And I mean, we love Toy Story. I had I had a Buzz Lightyear when I was a kid.
I,
Like,
I did too. Yeah, I didn't have a Woody
as a
doll though.
yeah, and I think I did at one point. I don't know. Like I said, they all they're all gone now. But I don't know. It's like there is a nostalgic appeal to Toy Story. I get it, but I think it's just like one of those franchises where it's like you should just let it be for now. I mean, I hope. I mean, the film is successful. Disney's obviously not going to learn their lesson, but then again, it's like maybe to get a Hoppers, you got to get a Toy Story 5. But you never know.
I mean, at this point, Toy Story's existed for so long that the kids that grew up with it now have kids of their own and can take them to see it. It's like this generational cycle. So, like, I understand. Like, for people to think, oh, Toy Story 5 is gonna bomb, it's like, no. Like, you'd have. I'm sorry, but you're a fool if you think Toy Story 5 is gonna bomb. It's like this. It's kind of like we were saying with Mario. It's like it doesn't matter how the quality of it. It's just so recognizable that it's gonna make money regardless of quality. So yeah, my big question is, do they do a sixth one?
Oh, they're going to. I don't doubt
I
it.
I think so too.
But
Because then oh my god, I pray they don't do this, but because it's a sixth one, it's going to be the third one with Bonnie. If they just do a retread of Toy Story 3, oh no, please don't do that. Please don't have it where
uh,
Bonnie's like an adult and they just redo the same thing. That would be awful. That would be
it could be
so
like
bad.
it could be like a flash forward 50 years into the future. The war between toys and humans commence. The toys start an uprising
Or
after
it has
technology
Andy.
takes over.
It has Andy as
Yeah,
an old man. That would
yeah.
be.
And he's like,
I
I s-
he owns like a toy museum or something. I cringe to think if that's. I don't know if I want to see them do Toy Story 6 now because I know they're gonna probably do something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're gonna probably poke fun at it, and try to find something. But I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
like I said, I mean, we at least got hoppers this year.
yeah,
Um, I mean, I guess like more or less, I'm very indifferent to it. Like, I don't love it, I don't hate it. I mean, I think I do appreciate what it's trying to do. And do think there is something there, but not enough to hold a film. Like,
yeah.
that's how I feel.
Yeah, it's not. It's certainly not. It's not even a bad movie, honestly. If it's still, I think Toy Story is one of those things. Like, not that I give it necessarily an immunity pass, but it's just the franchise at its core is just very strong. That you can turn something that is like like not offensive at all. I think it's impossible to make like an absolute like a 1 out of 10 Toy Story project. Like that's I think it's scientifically impossible to do. So it works because the characters, even with a not so great script, they're just so likable and distinct that they can carry forth with that. And even still, like this was made by the same people that essentially created the franchise. Like Andrew Stanton was one of the original writers of that first film, so he knows these characters. Like obviously John Lasseter is not involved in this, but he clearly he at least there was everyone tried, which I appreciate. Like it wasn't lazy. Some you could say it's probably some people could say it's cynical because obviously they knew this would make money, but it was obvious that they wanted to tell a story and like be Tommy, but that shouldn't be the main reason why you make a film. You should, if you want to be timely, that's fine, but also put that effort into making the story on the same level as the poignant message you want to address. And I think that was sort of the ongoing complaint that we've obviously discussed in this conversation was the fact that it's like it was the message first and everything else was just like, oh, it was a few tiers below. So
Yeah,
yeah, uh,
I guess we're just sort of getting in the final thoughts
we
anyway,
basically
but
did. Yeah. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess like for me, it's probably about a light six, maybe just a high five. I mean, wouldn't say it's bad. I mean, I think initially it's insane that, there is still some quality there. Um, like with the humor, it's there, and even with how much it dwells on its message, it's not like it's an unimportant message, especially for parents like worried about kids getting hooked to technology like it's drugs or whatever. But I just don't think there was enough of a gripping story there to really like help this film really stand above its message. Because there is a way to do it. Um, like we've seen examples already of like films talking about the nature of like technology sort of being this real thing and just trying to find ways to like really implement it in a way that could have nuance. I know you mentioned like what Terminator 2, but that's obviously much more of like an anti-technology type film. But you know what, we saw mentioned it in like the first episode when we talked about Mercy, but like Wallace and Gromit, like like they've like the new film they had with it, like like they actually did a good job like talking about the nature of technology without feeling so, you know, forced in. Um, but and I think Pixar is capable. I think I mean, they still have some left in the tank with this franchise, but I don't know. I don't just don't think there's enough to justify a fifth film. So, but yeah, that's probably where I put the
Yeah.
film. So,
Yeah, this is the weakest one, and I feel very confident that despite that, it is nowhere near a bad film. I would probably give the same rating, a light 6 out of 10. I think when I first saw it, it was more on the high end because there are some moments where it's like I really wish I loved it because there are people that really love the movie, and like every now and then there's sprinklings of you can really see the excellent like A tier Pixar movie trying to like break out, but it's really held back by the fact that it is really segmented. It's way too repetitive for a Toy Story film. And it just, the heart is there, but it just everything's operating at a lesser level. Like it didn't feel like it went above and beyond. And that was kind of disappointing at the end of the day. Not, not the worst Pixar sequel because we have abominations like Cars 2. I mean, heck, even I thought Inside Out 2 was quote worse than this. And not saying that was awful, but that was more disappointing in my opinion than Toy Story 5 was. So yeah, I I want to see Toy Story as a franchise continue in some form. I would love if they did more shorts, honestly, because those Toy Story tunes, those were comedy gold, honestly. Like did you see there's one where he gets like there's a Buzz Lightyear like Happy Meal toy,
yeah,
basically. That one's
that's
hilarious.
amazing.
That's
And
really
like
fun. Yeah, the
the
Hawaiian
combat car
Vacation.
one too. That's awesome.
Yeah,
But
do more stuff like that. Honestly, like I think that's how Toy Story as a franchise should continue on. Or if you want to do a spinoff, do a spinoff in the Toy Story universe. Don't do Lightyear. Like don't do anything like that. Like a realist approach. Do like I don't know, like some like cute, funny, like a side character spinoff film if you really wanted to. I think there's potential there, but yeah, it's fine. Honestly, Toy Story 5, it's a fine film. So yeah, 6 out of 10.
I want Star Command. God damn it.
Oh, the Buzz Lightyear cartoon.
Yeah, I want that. But apparently, like the Pixar, it's like Lasseter or somebody at Pixar really hated Star Command or something. I don't know who it
Really?
was. Um, because when
Hmm.
they made it, it was like supposed to be a like because Toy Story 2 is supposed to be direct to video, but then Disney saw like, oh, it could actually be theatrical, so they had to, okay, we got to put something in that slate, and it's like, oh, Star Command, and that's
Yeah.
how first few episodes shoved into a movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Was that during the era where Pixar and Disney had like contractual beef because
yeah,
they were under they didn't own them yet. So
yeah, that's what it was. Um, so, but I think somebody pointed it has to be Lasseter who hated who hated the existence of that show. Which I don't know. I don't know. Lasseter, like, he's always been particular about stuff like that, but it's like I want it on Disney Plus, man. I want it on Disney Plus, not what Chris Evans was doing, but where I felt bored half the time. Initially, I liked it, but I think I was in a different mindset when I saw it last time.
yeah,
I
I
think
thought
it
it was just
worked.
even when I
Yeah,
saw it, it was just fine. Like yeah, it
yeah.
was that
Uh,
was it. It was fine.
the for the worst of the franchise.
Oh, for
Toy
sure.
Story
Yeah.
5 is a little above, but like, yeah, not by that much for me always. But what can you do? Um, just like I don't know, like what are we gonna do at the DCU now?
Yeah.
Sort of in its rough stages now. Still. Um, and that's because Supergirl came out recently. Not a lot of attention, oddly enough. Um, like it's not doing good at the box office right now. I think it's just not really. I don't know. It's like it's not leaving the impact that the what Superman did.
No, yeah.
Um, it's like it's out, but nobody's talking about it. And admittedly, I saw it when I
This
was
is a
like,
this is a great introduction to this conversation because it sums it up perfectly.
oh yeah, yeah, it does. Because when I went to go see it, I was like fresh off of the Argentina Jordan game for the World Cup, and that was a 9 p.m. kick because I played Jordan. It's like ahead like by a couple time zones, but so initially they were watching at like 4 in the morning, but they were eliminated already. So I don't know why they still implement the 9 p.m. kick anyway. But I like I was running on like a few hours of sleep. I go to work because I have to go to work, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna go catch this real quick because there's no chance I'm gonna be able to catch this at all. But I was like so dead out of my mind. Well, like trying to go see this, and I walk in. It's like, okay, I got a comic book from
Oh.
AMC. That's nice, but I walk in and then I just like it's there. It exists. um, eh, it's not the worst thing, but it exists. I guess like as a follow up to like Superman, James Gunn's Superman, it like just sort of felt very underwhelming, obviously, because James Gunn's Superman had a lot of issues for sure, just tonally and narratively, but I could at least say that the passion seeps through with it. James Gunn knew what he was doing, even if like it wasn't thought all the way through. Um, and David Cornsweet still works as Superman, and yeah, he still works here. I mean, he looks good here.
Mm.
Um, all things considered, and like definitely shows like yeah, this is probably the next best Superman next to Reeve. Which Reeve's already set a super high bar already, but it was like Supergirl just sort of felt like it was somebody trying to be James Gunn directing Supergirl. And I could just like tell like it just doesn't have the intentionality that Superman had or really any of James Gunn's previous projects. I mean, Craig Gillespie is not a bad director by any means. I mean, I think I, Tonya is still a great film. So he is very talented, but it sort of felt like somebody trying to implement the James Gunn style without realizing like how that style works. Um, and then unfortunately, this creates a very like sluggishly paced and opaque looking movie. I just don't know why they made some of these choices, especially like with what Superman was looking so colorful here. Just the colors seem muted in some way.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I don't know, I mean, like there's parts where like it seems impressive, like the makeup and costume designs are actually pretty well done, all things considered. Production design doesn't look half bad. Um, but just like points where it's just like it's looking like EMCU after Endgame, where it's like everything is just so same looking, and there's just such a lack of vibrance. Um, and especially for a character that deserves it, like Kara Zor-El is actually a very good character. I mean, and I think yeah, it's about the 1984 film didn't do her justice at all,
Oh
but
God. Yeah.
it didn't. But I mean, what the best interpretation of the character has either been the animated shows or Melissa Benoist with the CW series, which Gunn was wanting to like separate that, which I get. I mean, I think there's a good idea here with um the character, but the narrative is just so nothing. Like it's just meh. Like, I mean, I had a more entertaining 12 hours before that, but like, man, I'm at this like I just can't believe how bored I was with this.
Yeah, it was really boring and really. I mean, you seem more on the side where it was mediocre, but I thought this one was like pretty bad. Honestly, just all around, it was just not very poor. I'm not really familiar with Supergirl as a character. I haven't seen the CW show, but I actually did watch the '84 film, not directly before. Well, the same week I saw this, because that's an infamously bad superhero film, and yeah, it's pretty abysmal, all things considered. However, it's one of those cases where the bar was so low that almost anything would be better. And yeah, this is better than the 1984 film, but as a follow, I know it's not a direct sequel to Superman, but when when Supergirl appeared at the end of that movie, it really had a lot of promise because I was thinking like, oh, this seems like a different version of the character. She's a bit she I don't know if like brash is necessarily the appropriate word to use to describe her, but there was she seemed more rebellious and a bit more kind of I don't even know if punkish either. I guess rebellious is the best way to describe it. And it's like, oh, this seems like you could do a lot of fun things, and especially with if the prospect was, oh, she's going to be exploring other planets, that could also show just expand more the vastness of the DC universe that James Gunn has been building up. And ideally, it would have been nice if there was some sort of like creative through line too, because I guess Gunn was the producer, but he wasn't involved with like the writing process or the director either. So it is essentially its own project, and it just doesn't have the same sense of excitement or charm that Superman had. I'm not going to keep drawing comparisons to Superman because I know it's not a direct sequel, but as that being the only basis for this universe, it does seem like a bit of a 180. It went from something that was more fun and poppy to slightly more dour. And weirdly enough, it's a superhero film, I guess, but it feels more like a Mad Max knockoff. And I was thinking, like, why are you doing this with Supergirl, which I just don't really understand. I know this is based on a specific comic run of the character that supposedly it's supposed to be really good, Woman of Tomorrow. But from what I've been told, it's not a faithful adaptation of that source material either. So it seemed like they just kind of use that as a supplementary, like inspired by. But overall, just the whole experience just felt very like senseless or and just kind of like flippant almost, I guess is a good way to describe it. It didn't really didn't have necessarily a great sense of storytelling or excitement either. That was the kind of thing, kind of like we were saying. It's just really boring because there's not much that's new. The characterization is very flat and weak. The action is pretty terrible, and like God, it looks awful, like genuinely horrendous from the color palette, the visual effects, which I was getting PTSD from the 2023 Flash, especially towards the end. It just the sense of polish and care just didn't feel like it was there. Yeah, maybe not care because obviously I know a lot of people put work into these films, but it just felt really sloppy overall. And I don't know, but a lot of people were comparing this to the Incredible Hulk from 2008, which was the second MCU film, and this kind of has a similar thing where it had a really high with the first film and a super underwhelming follow up. And obviously, this is still early on, but it really is disappointing when, especially in the age of the modern superhero cinematic universe. Like I would have assumed that by this point we would have learned essentially like how to regain your audience for the second film, and this one just felt like it didn't learn from those flaws or those mistakes.
Yeah, and it just sort of just felt like it didn't know what to do from a narrative standpoint. And I think I don't even know if it is sort of the whole plot, like because so initially, and I guess spoilers, but because I don't think anybody's really gonna go see this,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
it really underperformed this
Yeah,
weekend.
really underperformed.
I think it grossed less than Joker 2. That's what I
Yeah,
heard, which
it's
is insane.
yeah, it's I'm like too deeply into it. I think it's like 68 million for its opening weekend, which is just
But
coming
that's
on to the
worldwide.
fourth. Yeah, it's worldwide, and it's coming on to the 4th of July weekend too, which, just people that will probably want to go to the theaters, but then again, the whole world is here in the States. But regardless, but I think so. The whole narrative is basically that there's this guy named Krem who I admittedly had not heard of before, like watching this movie. He seems like a D grade villain who like shoots crypto or whatever, and crypto has like 3 days until he basically it's like a slow euthanization. So like, Pat Sajak was probably very happy about that.
Oh
Rest in
no.
peace. um, but anyway, um, but yeah, like, you know, initially, like, she has to go and try to chase down this dude to try to find like this antidote so she can save crypto. And it's like, this is a Supergirl movie, man. Like, I'm not saying like we need to have the high stakes with like the of like Superman, because admittedly like the plot there like had flaws, but I think it still worked effectively at the end of the day. But here it's just like, this is the plot we're getting, like, just saving a dog, and then of course you have to have an annoying like
Because people
um
people love crypto.
yeah,
People love
people
that
love
dog.
crypto. Yeah, we love it. And then you have that the annoying little sidekick who comes along for the ride, which I'm gonna give credit, the child actor's not doing bad, but
Yeah,
it's
she,
coming
she
off
was she
really
was all right.
yeah, if like, she this is times where she comes off a little bit wooden. And I give like Millie Alcock like credit because I actually do think she can play a very effective Supergirl if like the cards are aligned in the right way. Um, like, she was very good in House of the Dragon, and she certainly does bring like a pretty interesting personality to this character, sort of like somebody that's like a little bit of like a lost cause and trying to find like her way, trying to find like her place in the world, because her world's gone. What she set out to do no longer needs to like be fulfilled, since like Superman's already a thing on Earth. Um, and so I mean, I think that's what makes Kara as like a character like interesting. I mean, I think that's why there's a lot of people that really liked her in like other iterations, because she just works as like somebody really trying to find her own footing while also simultaneously trying to be not her like more popular cousin. Um, and I think that with um like this character, there is a way to make it work. I think because I actually like the idea of her sort of like being this like sort of like drunk and like pessimistic person, like sort of like a little bit of an antithesis to Superman, although like yeah, he's multiple antithesis with like, you know, Bizarro and Mecha Superman or whatever. But it's just like it just doesn't work that well just from a narrative standpoint, because like her whole arc is just structured so weirdly. Um like and so like the moment where she eventually does sort of like, live up to the name, Supergirl, it's like it doesn't feel earned. It feels like it's just like, it doesn't feel like it's there. I mean, I get it's like, sort of trying to create something where like, it's a character who has been traumatized and trying to cope with loneliness or whatever, which is a good idea, but it's just the way the film structured it from a script level just does not work. Like I think, and so the narrative's weak, her arc's weak, and outside of like what, Millie Alcock and Jason Momoa, it's like the acting is just sort of meh. Like it's just not doesn't work.
Yeah, I I think the weird thing is that the film has a kind of interesting structure. Like you would expect the film for I would, this isn't even necessarily an origin story superhero film, but you would think that it would start off with, oh, how did Supergirl, like what was it life like on Krypton and stuff. You would think that's how they introduce it, but no, it's sort of, it kind of goes back and forth in time, which I remember watching and thinking like that's an interesting structure, and I think some people say it's a bit like disconnected, but I don't know. It is interesting to see how, when we kind of were saying, she is very pessimistic, is very like sort of like essentially drinks away her sorrow and pain. In that way, is more of like kind of like a party goer in that way. But we see that without the context, and we slowly but surely more of the characters being revealed, which is not a bad way to deliver information, but just the story they tell with it, it doesn't feel. It almost seems with the conclusion, it just feels very obligatory. Like, oh, we need to have Supergirl fulfill her super duty essentially because she's a hero. She's meant to be this protagonistic figure, basically. But it doesn't feel, in the context of the narrative, it feels kind of rushed and just, oh, we had to do it. So let's try and essentially jigsaw puzzle our way towards that big action fight. And it doesn't feel earned or like fleshed out enough. And that's kind of was, in a weird way, it's almost like the Toy Story 5 problem where they wanted to get these specific beats, but didn't necessarily do that as a good way of build up or through line. And it's a shame because I think there is something there with this film, but just got the characterization overall is just so weak and so contrived, especially with the her goal of like getting the dog. But the weird thing is that you forget halfway through, especially when the kid comes in, because the kid wants to get revenge on Krem, the main villain, for killing her parents. And then that sort of gets fused with Supergirl. And then you forget that crypto is even a thing. Like, it, it almost has two different storylines that are merged together at the same point, and then they try to get to two conclusions, but you forget about one of them. Because the Krem character is more in the film because he's the main villain, and he's not a good villain either, in my opinion. He's very, very lame, nothing to him. The performance also isn't good. I will say the makeup isn't that bad. I kind of like the makeup in the movie, but yeah, just the actor didn't do necessarily a great job either. Yeah, and Jason Momoa. It's funny that Jason Momoa was even in this movie because he was in the previous DC universe that no longer exists. No matter, despite the Snyder fans really wanting it to return, but that's not happening. But yeah, it's funny to see him back, but he doesn't do much either. I don't even know who the Lobo character is, but he just seems like, oh, he's Timu Drax. Basically, that's what I was thinking. He's
Yeah,
just like
I guess.
muscular one
Mm,
lining sidekick. I don't know if he's gonna return in another DC project, but
I probably will.
yeah,
Yeah,
he felt kind of pointless, basically.
yeah, so I guess a little bit of Superman lore. So Lobo is sort of like this immortal bounty hunter, sort of.
Oh,
So
he's
I
immortal.
guess, yeah, he's like an immortal character in some cases. But yeah, he's like this immortal bounty hunter who just sort of is in a lot of things for himself. I guess you could sort of describe him as like Punisher-like, which actually would make a lot of sense. That Brent Castle probably took a lot of inspiration from Lobo initially. So, and to be honest, it's fitting casting. I think it's actually one of the main highlights of the film is like Momoa playing this type of character who, honestly, he should have been playing long instead of Aquaman, if I'm being honest. Just because I think Momoa's personality fits in perfectly with the whole idea of like this Lobo character. Although, like, yeah, in the whole scheme of the film, he's comes off rather pointless. Like he has one big moment in the climax, and that is it. He's just getting his bike and like fucking off. That's what he's doing. Um, which is very in character for Lobo at the end of the day. Like he's sort of somebody who like is in it for himself. Like he'll team up sometimes with the Man of Steel for some things, but at the end of the day, he'll just like go back and do whatever he's doing. So he isn't necessarily much of an antagonist as he is like an anti-hero. Um, in the DC universe, really, in the whole scheme of how the comics are. But yeah, I don't know. It's like they sort of, yeah, but I think like he works. I think the character works. I just wish he was in a better film than this. I mean, I think I would have liked to see Momoa like on the screen with David Cornsweet or Nicholas Holt. Like, I mean, not saying he doesn't have chemistry with like Millie Alcock, but it's just like he just doesn't like he just doesn't seem to have like his motivations are so weird. It's like, like, oh, you're teaming up with Supergirl now despite one measly interaction with her and the little girl Ruthie, and it's just like I don't know. Like
Yeah.
I liked seeing Lobo in live action. I enjoy it, but I think there could have been this a better movie for him to be in than this.
I think there was a better movie for Supergirl to be in than this, if I'm being totally
Mm-hmm.
honest, because it just felt so unfocused. Like, if you really wanted to have Supergirl just find crypto, that should have been it. You shouldn't do the whole stuff with the kid. It's like pick one or the other. Like, don't do both, because I don't even know if that necessarily would be a great film, just having the Supergirl try to find crypto, but at least it would have had more focus. It basically would have been John Wick, but with Supergirl. And maybe like make the action better, have her do more stuff, because just overall the action was so sloppily done. And especially seeing it in IMAX too, it was the cinematography was horrendous at points, especially in that one single take fight in that like junkyard. It was really bad. It was hard to see what was happening. And then the digital effects too, where I swear it looked like the budget just ran out at some points. It looked really, really poor, especially with the green screen work. And I know some people were saying that the effects in Superman weren't amazing either. And not to say it's not the best CGI, but it definitely felt more stylized and appropriate for that tone. But Supergirl is ostensibly trying to be more grounded and serious, but I never for a millisecond believe that these characters are interacting on these planets. It looks so fake and phony. And there's shots where the green screen, just the compositing is just so bad in on those planet scenes towards the end, with the kid character running towards the screen. Or I think the only shot that wasn't in the action scene that I thought looked really abysmal too was when Kara is in the escape pod in Krypton, and then it like zooms out from David Krumholtz's like face, and it's like, oh, that looked really bad. I'm just like, oh my gosh, how did nobody see that and think like, hey, can we like redo it? Like, seriously?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of felt like they sort of had a need to like rush this out, and it's like, to be honest, they couldn't have. They could have just gave it another year for it to
Yeah,
work out,
what
but
was the rush?
yeah, I mean, I know you have Man of Tomorrow that's going to be coming out next year, but like, there could have been a way to like maybe have like Supergirl come maybe just a little more before that, but not by too much. But you want to be sure you have those release schedules. I mean, that's like the thing of franchise filmmaking is you don't want to try to wait too long, otherwise the audience loses interest. But I think it's more or less that like everything just didn't feel like it was all that well thought out. Like I said, it just feels like it's Craig Gillespie trying to do James Gunn, and even to the point of like the needle drops, which don't feel motivated at all. Um, I mean, I know like yeah, it's like I know there's like people that like like to critique like James Gunn's needle drops, but to be honest, like he has like a purpose for them in a lot of the films he's made with like Guardians and Peacemaker and Superman. It's like, yeah, because those needle drops felt motivated. Like they actually had some intentionality behind it. Like Punk Rocker and Superman like makes a lot of sense because oh yeah, it's like, oh, it's so punk rock of you. So it fits. It fits. And the Walkman and the Guardians trilogy, it's like, yeah, that fits too. Um and and yeah, there's like times where it could be like non-diegetic, like in Peacemaker, but even then that works because it's creating a moment, like the moment with like the butterflies invading the bodies of the police station. It's like, yeah, that actually feels motivated there. Like it actually doesn't feel like it was there to just to like play a song. It's there because it's trying to make you feel like this very eerie feeling. And I feel like with this, it's like it's trying to do what Guardians is doing, where it wants to try to make it more non-diegetic. I mean, the only time you like see like the music being any motivated is when Kara gets an iPod on Earth. Like that's it. Like that's it. Because otherwise, every song just feels unmotivated, and then like the last song in that sequence is like you're grabbing a really good song, mind you, called The Middle, which is like probably like one of the most like popular punk rock anthems of the 2000s. Like even if you don't know the band, it's like you know the song, like it takes some time to a little bit. Like yeah, I mean it's a good song, it has a good vibe to it, and I think like yeah, I could see the reason why Gunn chose it, but the version, yeah, he chose it. Yeah, he chose it, but I don't. But they should have just chose the like original version or something, or at least like I don't know, maybe try to grab Haley Williams or something to like do a cover of it. Not this, like this Ellie Goulding lookalike. I forgot her name, but like it's sounds so processed. It just doesn't fit within this scene. Like the whole vocal stylings just don't work for like this type of personality for this character. And it's like, I mean, you could to get the song, I think, yeah, it could fit. I could see what James Gunn was thinking, but like, why why this version of the song?
Yeah,
Like,
it felt like a temp track that was put in, and you make a good point that the whole film, or especially the needle drops, just felt like very incidental and just sort of they like tacked them on. It clearly didn't do the James Gunn approach, where I think, if I'm not mistaken, he writes the needle drops in the script, which is like the ultimate double-edged sword, because then that shows to the studio like, oh, he put it in. We have to like we have to get the rights regardless of how expensive it is. But that shows that okay, he wrote this in mind with this song. It has to be this way. It cannot be replaced. That clearly was not the case for Supergirl. They just put their iPod on shuffle mode and be like, okay, let's just fit it in here. And that's just the whole thing. Like the whole thing, especially with the visual style and the cinematography, just felt very unmotivated and static. Like not the only interesting like stylistic decision that I thought was kind of cool is when Supergirl gets shot with that kryptonite gun from Krem, and then it shows the kryptonite going into her like bloodstream, and it's like overtaking her cells. I thought that was actually kind of neat. It was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting way to approach that. It was very minimal, but it's like you can see there are little inklings of thought put into that sense of style, but it should have carried forth throughout the whole film, especially if you're trying to mimic someone like James Gunn, who's so connected and stylized. Sorry, like you go more like that. It just this felt like a very weak imitation overall. And at the end of the day, like as a superhero film, where there's so many of these now, obviously, it just there needs to be more. Like obviously, this film has a beginning, middle, and end, but it just comes off as extremely derivative, especially in the day and age where we have superhero films that like the people say that talk about the oversaturation and stuff of that, but it's like we have the Spider-Verse stuff where they are really pushing the envelope like how superhero storytelling can be. And obviously this is happening in the beginning of a cinematic universe, but what's wrong with trying to give this character a clearer sense of motivation or characterization and giving the villain more defined purpose? Or if you wanted to even have this sidekick kid character in, please just do something new, because we've seen this so many times and it's getting really tiresome. And we didn't even say spoiler because there's not really a point in spoiling anything, but like the ending, the villain's defeat too. There's an interesting moment where the kid wants to kill Krem basically because she wants to enact that revenge, but then Supergirl is like, no, like don't do it essentially because you're gonna regret it later on. And in a way that shows the goodness of Supergirl as a character. Like she doesn't want her to, yeah, she'll be satisfied getting the revenge, but then that's going to ultimately shift her worldview and perspective to essentially become someone like Krem, who's like ruthless and like unsympathetic, basically. So she kind of insists like, oh yeah, no, don't do it. Like he's defeated, but then she goes and kills him. Supergirl kills him, which that's not necessarily the problem because obviously she gets to enact her revenge for taking crypto. My problem is that Krem gets literally stabbed in the throat. You see it too, but there's no blood. Like, and I get this is a PG-13 rated film, but like you see the blade going into his throat and there isn't any blood. Like seriously, it's like Black Panther. I think there's a character who got their throat slit and you didn't see a drop of blood. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
it's funny.
nobody
It's kind
no,
of funny.
nobody has blood anymore.
I guess not.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, blood doesn't exist in this universe, but it exists in the last film, so I don't know. But I don't know. I mean, I didn't mind. I think I guess we're both sort of agree. Like we didn't mind sort of like the whole stabbed in the back sort of promise that Kara does take in the film. We're like, yeah, don't do this, and then she immediately does it. It's sort of a
That's not bad. That's not the problem. So
yeah, it's not the problem. I mean, I think it's just the way it's executed, it's just a little sloppy, but I think it that could have been such a great moment. Because like I said, Supergirl in some cases is like an antithesis for Clark Kent's Superman,
mhm.
where Clark Kent is just generally speaking like the nicest darn guy you'll ever meet. And Kara is just like sort of somebody that it's like she feels like she's in his shadow and wants to try to create an identity for herself. And I so I think there is like an idea there. I mean, there's even like points where like in the comics, like every other superhero comic, like she does become an antagonist at certain points, but most of the time it's like sort of like a rebellious sort of character that's different from Clark Kent's squeaky clean image. But I guess it's just like the way it's just edited, it just looks so sloppy and it's really just doesn't give you time to really like sink in those emotions at all. And it didn't feel like it, I don't know it's supposed to come unexpected, but like and there was never a point in the film where it ever felt like Kara was gonna do something similar to that. So like so it comes out of nowhere in the wrong way. So I felt like there just could have been a way to sort of like flesh that part out on that character better because like yeah, I mean Kara is like I said a little more on the antithesis for Superman in some cases, but there just could have been a way to make it work. Because Millie Alcock's trying her best. Like she's really you could tell like I actually am excited to see this character more in this universe, but it's probably not the film that that really helps her character really grow. It's really tough.
No, not at all. Yeah, like I think it needed to go more the route of Guardians because I don't think this is trying to be. In its defense, I don't think this is trying to be like Guardians of the Galaxy. It just so happens to evoke some of that tone, but like I said, it's trying to be more like Mad Max. But I don't understand why you would do that with Supergirl. To me, those two, that character and that type of storytelling does not correlate. And maybe it was similar to the comic that it was based on, that specific the Woman of Tomorrow comic, but even then there was just it felt very disconnected and just didn't it felt like they were clashing together to try and get it to work. And then also the fact that Superman is in the film too, it's just reminding you of that type of tone and style. It doesn't know which lane to pick, which is frustrating. And also like to talk about Superman himself, like I like David Cornsweet, but I don't know, the vibe I got from him, it just didn't seem like he wanted to be on the film set. Maybe it was his dialogue was all like so bad, like clearly trying to emulate the James Gunn style, but it felt extremely clunky. He wasn't really like emoting very well. He was just kind of like standing there like an NPC, and it wasn't. I just didn't buy him in the role. It was really like awkward, and I understand the context of the scene is that like Kara lands outside the Fortress of Solitude. She only speaks Kryptonian, but Superman speaks English, and so he's just like, oh, I'm your cousin. It's like, and then she just kind of looks at her like, what? And he's like, oh, you can't understand me. I'm wearing I wear this to symbolize that we're the good guys. Basically, it's just it's so awkward, and it's like it's not, but it's not funny though. It was clearly trying to be funny, but it was just it didn't. The humor wasn't landing at all. It was just really uncomfortable and just didn't work.
Honestly, like his performance actually I think works. I mean, I think it's
Oh
still
yeah,
emblematic of you know, I mean, yeah, I think it's more or less the dialogue that it's like the issue with those scenes, and because like to be honest, like this is perfectly on brand for Clark Kent, like sort of
I
just being
guess yeah.
a little bit awkward, being like that, but like I said, it's just like the way it's directed is so sloppy, and my corn sweat is like I don't know. Like I said, I still think he really does embrace like the quirky aspects of the character very well. I mean, like I said, I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing more of him in this role.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely, yeah.
yeah, like he's that effective. Like I said, this is some. Like I said, this is probably like the next like best iteration next to the animated version and Christopher Reeve. And so I think I'm really excited to see him in these films more. Obviously probably in a film that doesn't have such clunky execution and dialogue, but I think his performance still pulls through. Like he still sort of gives off the little awkward small town, farmer vibe to him. Which is very perfect for the Clark Kent character. But yeah, I don't know, it's just like the directing is just so off. You know, there is something that you should watch instead, and it has Supergirl in it. And
What?
it's not in theaters.
Oh,
It's the animated show from Adult Swim, My Adventures of Superman.
oh yeah, I heard
Um,
that's good.
yeah, it's really good. It's Shaolin anime inspired. And they introduce Kara in the second season. And she takes a primary role in the third season. But and yeah, admittedly, it does take like a lot into the like Shaolin inspirations, but the characterization is very, very fresh and inventive just for the type of character she is. Um, and like I like I kept like thinking back to like her appearances in the show compared to like here where although I am like I said, I am on board with this version of Supergirl and this performance from Millie Alcock, but it's like the way this characterization sort of like explained is like I was like, man, I think about like an animated show that just introduced a side character in its second season and upped them to a main character. Like has more personality and better characterization than a film that probably took about 2 years to make. And they probably, and I'm not saying it didn't take them a long time to make My Adventures of Superman because I think they had like a year gap so they could get this show out. But like, I'm thinking it's like that has so much personality. Like, I'm not saying they need to do a Shaolin anime type film, but like if you're trying to like create a character that is sort of like I guess like the best example is like Peter Quill or whatever, like from Guardians. 'Cause it seems like what they're trying to do is like try to create somebody that has a little bit edgy, a little bit more, um, a little bit more of like an outcast. I think there is a way to make it work. And especially, and it's interesting that it's with a female character. We don't see it that often with a female lead. Um, but it just doesn't I just felt like it just really felt uninspired. Like there is a way there, but it's just,
Yeah, I think that yeah, that's what's so kind of disappointing about this film in particular is that there are a lot of really interesting prospects that were introduced with her one scene at the end of Superman. That just the film that she eventually starred in and was the main lead was just so generic and just not inventive though. Like I feel like there were so many engaging prospects to do like a solo Supergirl film. And who knows, maybe in if she's going to be in Man of Tomorrow, then maybe she'll do something more interesting. They kind of hint at that at the end of this movie too, just sort of the adventures she'll go on. But considering this is like this introductory film that they sort of hint prospects on at the end of Superman, or at the end of Supergirl, just sort of the adventures that she might go on. This film did not live up to those expectations, basically, that they're trying to set.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really just felt underwhelming. I mean, I think it has merits. I mean, I can see what they're trying to do with this character. The pieces are there. And like I said, there's moments of like good makeup, good costume design. Millie Alcock and Jason Momoa are doing pretty good in their roles, all things considered. But like, the antagonist is so lame. And
Yeah.
like one of
Awful
those
villain.
antagonists, yeah, just like an antagonist, it's like, how you're fucking Kryptonian. How can you not beat this guy? like he like he just comes off as a normal dude. He doesn't come off alien. Like it's like the freaking it's like Xerxes from 300 where like has all the piercings on his face, and it's like it's a good design for like his facial expressions. It's like it's really annoying. Like, it's just like this guy is more of a pest than an actual intimidating villain, like the way Lex Luthor was. Like Lex Luthor was like, I know people like say like, oh, he's a little more like gamer bro-ish, but like honestly, like Lex felt intimidating. Like
Lex had a personality too.
yeah, like yeah, he had personality. He was intimidating. Like, the reason Superman could never beat him because obviously Superman has like such a high moral code that he's not gonna try to like, kill Lex Luthor. That's not his thing. And so it's more of a battle of wits between both of them, because trying to see who can outsmart the other. But obviously one pulls through in the end. And I actually felt more he was hateful in the right way too. Like he was hateful. He was a very hateful villain. Here it's like this is like a villain that's hateful in the wrong way. He's just annoying. like, and like trying to do like a full like Johnny Depp style impression, it's not working. Like it's really not working.
It's kind of crazy because Krem as a villain, his motivation is far worse than Lex Luthor. Like Lex is just basically Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, but like Krem is essentially a human trafficker. Like that you hate him because he's so dull as a character. Like not from the acts he's doing necessarily. Like God, just me. The good thing about villains in stories is just like you love to hate them because of how devious and villainous they are. And you don't get that from Krem. He's just kind of a joke.
Yeah, he is. It's like I said, it's so there's so many instances where I think Supergirl literally could have just like killed him.
Yeah.
I guess
But then the movie would end sooner. So that's why they didn't
yeah,
do it.
true, but I don't know. But I guess like the only good scene in the movie, I guess you could, I don't know, it was sort of hit or miss, but I think it's works okay. Was the scene where Kara has to take a like bus to the planet she's going to, and it gets invaded by like these raiders, and it's like okay, there's
Oh yeah. It
actually a
wasn't
fun
bad.
sequence. Yeah, it's like a fun sequence there. I mean, it's lit poorly, but I can say that like, okay, I could see what they're trying to do, be a little more. It's sort of like the one whole scene where she like stops their ship, like it does feel like it was embracing the comic book edge. I mean, it was awkward hearing Seth Rogen's voice as the little alien dude, but I don't know. He made the studio. I guess he could do whatever he wants at this point. But I don't know. I mean, that's like probably the only scene in the movie that I could see it working a little bit. Every other part, not really. uh,
Yeah.
any
I,
other thoughts on this at all? Or
not really. I mean, I'll just go into my final thoughts. It was just very, very unambitious, very uninspired, and just not good overall. Like I can't say this is mediocre. It was just it was just bad, honestly, and not in an offensive way because this wasn't like Mandalorian and Grogu where I was offended by just how unambitious it was. It was more that there were some sprinklings of promise and potential that I wish there was just a better script, better direction, better action to go alongside it, because there was something here, and it's a shame that it didn't live up to that. Like there was, yeah, a lot of wasted potential. Really disappointing, especially for the interpretation of this character, and for this to be the film is just such a disservice. So yeah, 3 out of 10. That I think that's why I gave it. It's a very unfortunate follow up for the DC universe, but I'm sure there's going to be better films in this universe, so I'm not going to write it off entirely. And I'm sure Supergirl will be in other better films, but as a solo film, not good. Don't recommend it.
I think it's probably more like a 4 for me, but maybe on the lower end. Um, because like I said, it has those bits and pieces that could work. Like I said, Millie Alcock does good. I mean, Jason Momoa like practically lives up to the Lobo casting. And I don't know. I mean, there's like moments where I could see like some characterization pulling through, and some instances. But it's just the plot is just so generic. It feels very sluggish. It's trying to have a personality similar to James Gunn's Guardians films, but just doesn't work. And I don't know, it just felt very dull. I mean, I just feel like you could give this character much better. I mean, even as like flawed as like, the CW iteration could be, um, because obviously it's a little more like corny and cheesy. That's just the nature of all the CWDC shows anyway. Um, and obviously a little more like young adult ish. Like you could tell it's aimed at young adults when you watch it.
Yeah.
But I could at least say that there was an attempt at like a personality there, even if it's like the more goody two shoes version of it. It's like I could see like, okay, yeah, she must have been honest, like still does great at Supergirl, and yeah, I mean, My Adventures of Superman, like watch that show. It's a great show. Like it has a good iteration of Kara Zor-El in it. And even like the '90s and 2000s animated version of the character as well. They actually take her ambitious places in that series, but regardless, but here it's just not a thing. Like it's just like I like the idea of like what they want to do with this character, but it just
Mhm.
doesn't work. I think like there could have just been some better direction and something that felt like there was more intentionality, more style here, that wasn't just trying to emulate James Gunn half the time. And yeah, just unfortunately dull. I mean, I'm excited to see Millie Alcock in this role in the future. Same with Jason Momoa as Lobo. But everything else, like, I fell asleep forgetting about it. Like, I literally almost fell asleep in the theater.
Yeah.
Or can I say Argentinians wore me out? But this film did too.
No, I mean, I think it
um,
was more the film, because the film was very boring. So
yeah, at least Argentinians like gave me a good time, sort of. But here it's like, oh man, I wanted to fall asleep. But yeah, 3 out of 10. Don't you know? Don't you know it's time for my rec, my
oh yeah.
host rec? Oh yeah, my little host rec. Going back up to my Midwestern roots, near the near the border of Canada and Minnesota. Probably from the best set of duo of filmmakers out there. Don't you know? You betcha. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta take my leg off and take my snowmobile. It's Canadian hospitality. I don't know. I'm thinking about Family Guy jokes. But yeah, that's my host track. Like I said, going back to my roots, a little bit because growing up in Minnesota, this was actually a film that was talked about a lot. And oddly enough, like the accent does exist. um, it
I
does
bet. Yeah.
exist. Yeah, it's like it is over exaggerated, but we did have a neighbor who had that level of accent, not in that quirky type of way though, but regardless, this is the Coen brothers Fargo from 1995. Um, Probably like one of my all-time favorite films. And yeah, just like it's practically like an indie filmmaker's dream to have a film like this. If you don't know what Fargo is about, it's sort of like a crime thriller. Where it follows Frances McDormand as a pregnant police chief named Marge, which yeah, that is a very like um, Minnesota name too. But it's she's like investigating this murder that happened in Fargo, that is somehow connected to a very desperate car salesman and a duo of criminals. But yeah, I was pretty excited to talk about this film. I think it's a film because I've been feeling a little like nostalgic for Minnesota lately. Especially with the fact I grew up there, although I haven't been back there in probably about 4 years. But it's amazing that this film was filmed by where I grew up.
Mm.
Right off, and you'll probably see in the film, and I know I sent you a photo, but there was a point in the film where uh, they were going back to the strip club joint, and the exterior of that shot was literally half a mile away from my house.
Yeah,
Like
wow.
yeah, so and there's like parts of Minnesota where I could like see, oh yeah, I grew up there, I've been there, I've been to all these places, and yeah, it's like the Coens are from St. Paul as well, so it's like they clearly knew where to film this, and yeah, it's one of my favorites. But regardless of me gushing about it, what are your sort of thoughts on it?
It's excellent. Yeah, I really really like this movie. I've only seen it I think once before. I saw it in high school for the first time, and the Coen brothers I think they're really interesting filmmakers, but there's still a lot of films that I hadn't seen. I want to say this was my first Coen brothers film, I think. Maybe Big Lebowski, but this was definitely one of the earlier ones I've seen, and this is neck and neck with No Country for Old Men for me. But they're incredibly different. I This is such a distinct crime film where it is genuinely thrilling, but it's also extremely funny. Like I've forgotten how funny the movie is, and just the dialogue is super witty. All the characters are very memorable, and this is a film that really embraces the setting as almost a character in and of itself. Like this is a very Midwestern movie. Like I also grew up in the Midwest. I didn't grow up in Minnesota, but I there are still a lot of these locations and personalities that are feel very much general to that part of America. And I didn't even realize that the Coens were from Minnesota. Like I knew they were from the Midwest, but I thought they were from, I don't know, like Missouri or something. But you having that local touch adds so much to the authenticity. Like this, something I love about their films is that all the characters or like the actors, just like everyone that's in front of the camera, you like fully believe that they're a part of this world, and it feels very authentic and believable. And in Fargo, it's probably the best it's ever been. Just like every character is so memorable, from the main protagonist to the antagonist, or even just the little side characters too that just sort of make up this world. And I just really, really love that overall. And um, also, big shout out to Roger Deakins' cinematography too. Like even though this is not necessarily a grand scale story, he really frames it in a way that just feels so expansive and wondrous. Like the emphasis on the stark white snow that just envelops the entire background. It almost acts like the characters are against a blank canvas, and sort of adding to this sort of artifice that the Coens are bringing to this story. Because also a big thing about the film too is that it's based on a true story, in quotes, which you might be more familiar with this. Like, did they just make that up, or was this actually inspired by some real event? Because I actually don't know myself. I've heard different
Yes.
reports.
So yeah, there was an actual criminal event that did happen. Um, and I guess this is like I wouldn't say this is the first instance of the quote unquote based on a true story type film. But I think this is the one that probably did popularize it. I think I'm just like sort of reading into it as we speak. But yeah, they based it on a criminal event. Um, but they just decided that, they wanted to write a fictional story around it. So not necessarily, because obviously like it would be very disingenuous to try to like make a story about trying to replicate real life. And yeah, obviously this film does in some cases, but they are pretty much like, trying to do this like level of like ensuring that there is like a truth to it, but like it's still making sure that's a fictional story. At least in terms of how it's told. But yeah, it is based on a true story. I think one of the bigger inspirations was there was a 1986 murder of a Danish American flight attendant who like got killed by her husband and like was disposed in a wood chipper. Pretty
Oh.
much like obviously from the most infamous scene in the film with the wood chipper.
Mhm.
Um, I think the Coens also like, there was skepticism of whether or not it was a prank, but I don't know. I mean, but initially I still think it worked out. But I think there's still a lot of speculation about who, like, what the Coens based it on. But yeah, there were like, other stuff that they probably based it on as well. But I think there's been a lot of popular cases. I think it's the Hellcraft one, and then there's like one involving an attorney who like basically hired a man to kill his wife. So it's basically the same way as you know, um, William H. Macy, but the Coens have like refuted that.
Mhm.
So I think, so yeah, but they sort of joke about it. So like, they say like, yeah, the story was made up, or it's like the only thing that is true about it is the story. Like that's a quote from Joe Cohen. But um, so yeah, there is a lot of speculation of whether or not this was a real story. But I think regardless, it's still a good story. Like really,
Oh,
really excellent. So
yeah. The fact that if it was based on a true story or not, it doesn't change the fact that the script is immaculate. Like it's honestly just it's near perfect. Just if we want to talk about a movie with a good progression of scenes, like this is just exceptional. Just every single beat works and has purpose and it flows really nicely too. The movie's not very long either, but it's paced really really well. And like I just the way they establish information with the William H Macy character and how you think that he had a really good plan going in, but then as it unravels, you just realize that like, oh, he like glanced over very glaring things. And part of the humor too is that just everyone besides Frances McDormand and I guess her husband too, like which not to go on a tangent, their relationship is so sweet. Like it's just this most ideal like marriage where they're happy together, they're content. Like when he um, gets up really early along with her, just to like make her breakfast before she goes out to see the crime scene, or how they both have meals together. It's really really charming. But to go back to what I was saying earlier, like all the characters that surround Frances McDormand are like really just they're kind of like idiots, which is kind of funny. Like William H Macy, he's just bumbling around, and he does such a bad job at lying and hiding the fact that he's the mind behind this crime, but somehow still manages to get away with it. But just it really just goes to show how like pathetic he is. And then Steve Buscemi and I forget who the actor is who plays Guy or Gayer or
oh, it's
whatever.
Peter Stormer.
Peter Stromer, yeah, like their camaraderie is just hilarious. Like there's a lot of things that I remember about this movie, even though it's been a really long time since I've seen it. But Steve Buscemi always stood out. Just how he's always putting Geyer down, and he thinks he's like this like really like he's like a hot shot kind of dude, but he's just kind of like this bumbling idiot like alongside with them, just so insecure too. And he thinks he's like the tough guy basically in the situation, but he's also equally pathetic, which it's really funny. And it's something that only the Coens could pull off. Like they're able to pull off this very specific type of humorous tone that could, for some people, I would argue in some ways border on quirky, but it never goes too far. It never feels like it's overstepping it or it's welcome in that way. It's like this perfect blend of humor that's throughout, but then it makes the more violent and scary aspects like really, really shocking. There's two. The one that I can think of is the build up to when they're breaking into the house to kidnap William H. Macy's wife, and they're like the burglars in Home Alone. Like they're just complete fools, like trying to open the door or like trying to catch her. Basically, like they're all over the place. But then when they actually like break in, it's pretty scary. To tell you the truth, it's really shocking, and there's this really good sense of directorial control too. And I think that's kind of what is really highlighted in this film in particular, because I love No Country for Old Men for how dark and sinister that movie is. That's a movie where there's absolutely no sense of joy or fun. But this film, it's almost more impressive the fact that it's balancing those things really well. Like one minute you're laughing hysterically, but then the other time you're at the edge of your seat and you're like kind of shocked at when the violence and bloodshed happens. It's really great.
Yeah, and it's like, and it maintains like this like tone where it's obviously more in the realm of dark comedy, which like that's where the Coens have like pretty much made their bread and butter. Um, so I think it's fitting with this type of tone, and plus like and in such a like a positive, like not like a positive tone, but more or less than like how everybody is just so like cheerful in some cases, like with the characters outside of like the villains. Because it's really hard like not to be amused by like the way people interact in this movie. It's because they all just like, they talk in this very chipper way, and they just like, you know, they just sound very nice. It's like, oh yeah, we got this murder going on. Like, oh yeah, for sure. It's like, yeah, it's like it's it is very like it could be very off-putting for some, or it's like, oh, like why is it there's a murder going on? Why are they all acting like this is just another day of the week? But it sort of adds to like the film's identity of just sort of being this darkly humorous take on just such a very like intriguing crime story. And I guess it's like it's an interesting just juxtaposition because you mentioned earlier like how basically like the villains in this movie are like complete idiots. Like they're not like very bright in how they sort of let this whole plan go about. And like Frances McDormand, like obviously Oscar winning performance here. Not only does she like get like the chipper personality well, but it's like she really handles like so much command and just really creates a very like interesting main character. It's just like going about life. Like she's, 7 months pregnant, and she's she's married to a guy like that is willing to stick out for her no matter what. And just like so simple, like just such a simple character, but she really embraces that simplicity. But I just sort of like how she doesn't like it's not like a cat and mouse chase or whatever, like the fugitive is, but more or less like she's going about the procedural police work, but it's in such a way where it sort of feels like she just knows what's going on. Like she doesn't come off like, that she's figuring out things as she goes along. It's like she is right there with us. Like, yeah, it's pretty easy to tell like who is behind this crime. It's just a matter of like how they did it, where everybody is. Um, because like I said, like William Jury is just such a liar. Like, he's like it's easy to tell like that this guy is in over his head, and like she knows it. Like that
Mhm.
the first scene where they meet with one another and just talk about like the lots, and she like is reading his facial expressions and is still acting so joyful, but she like just the way she just like instantly reads like, okay, yeah, this is clearly the guy we're figuring out. Like this is clearly the guy we need to talk about. Like it's a really interesting character that is so easy to latch onto. Is like also very funny. In many of the scenes, especially with like she's out in the middle of the ice and it's like, oh yeah, I'm all right. I'm just gonna barf. It's like, yeah, it's perfect. Like it's really great acting. There's reasons why Frances McDormand's such a good talent.
It's also really interesting how she's not in the first act at all. Like she's introduced like 37 minutes in or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and but she immediately makes has this presence like when she arrives, and she's one of might be one of my favorite movie characters ever, honestly, just because something about the Minnesota niceness in this film is that it is more often than not like it's so over exaggerated that it's like kind of funny, but it also does a good job at highlighting how this niceness is almost more sinister because what are they hiding behind that facade essentially? Like we see that when McDormand goes on that, like she meets up with Mike, the friend from out of town, who is later revealed that like you could tell he's very insecure and nervous, but then it's revealed that he's more just trying to get back with her essentially. Um, but immediately to go back to what I was saying about Marge as a character is that her niceness, she fits in with that environment because you could tell right away, like, oh, she is nice. But then as the movie goes along, like she is probably the most genuinely good-hearted person in this entire film at the end of the day, because just the way she instills a sense of order and like is like a foundational rock too, as like this authoritative figure, but always manages to approach the crime and her role as an officer in a way that instills genuine kindness and optimism, but not in a way that feels insincere. Like I really love when she's like talking to Jerry and like trying to basically get the information out of out of him. Like she's there comes a point when like she says like I something about like Jerry's tone. I forget. I wish I wrote the specific line down, but there's a point when um, she like kind of gets fed up, but it's still very restrained almost. And you could maybe she's some people say she's putting on an act, but you could just tell like she doesn't like to get angry. She doesn't like to get upset. Like she's just one of those people. And even towards spoiler, the end of this movie, that's one of the most popular American films of the past like 50 years. But like at the end when Geyer is like putting the bodies into the wood chipper, and like she stops him basically, but like when he starts running away, she's holding him at gunpoint basically, and she has every opportunity to like shoot him right then and there, like he's defenseless, but she lets him run, and it's like at the very last instant that she's able to is when she fires, and not even like in a point where he'll be like seriously hurt. It's just like on like his ankle where he's like injured, yeah, but he'll definitely he's not gonna die from that. Obviously, it's like she violence for her is her absolute last resort, and that really just goes to show like the good hearted side of her, the genuine kindness, and even when she's bringing him in the police car, she's she's kind of like talking to him and saying like, yeah, there's more to life than just a little bit of money. Like, was it worth throwing it all away? Like feeling a bit remorseful and also trying to instill a sense like how can you essentially improve yourself from something like this. And it's also kind of sad that Geyer is the one who got arrested when he really didn't do much of the crime, to tell you the truth. Like, yeah, he broke into the house, but he didn't set up the plan. He didn't like shoot. Well, I guess he killed Steve Buscemi, but like he didn't
I
shoot.
mean, he did kill the other driver, like when they like
Oh,
were,
that's right.
well,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh,
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
I'm
yeah, and he killed the police officer too.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, like he
he's
has,
so. But there's he's more isolated. I think that's kind of why you forget almost. So
yeah, and it's like, I guess it's like interesting because I think he's like sort of the guy or character sort of has like this element of like a true darkness to him, that you don't really get with the even the Steve Buscemi character. Like the Steve Buscemi character seems like a guy who's like all bark, no bite. Um, but you know, it's obviously just doing stuff for a job, but he doesn't seem like he's overtly violent the same way Geyer is. Like Geyer is just like really, really violent. Like he, you know, he shoots the police officer in the head, and he like goes to chase after the witnesses and kills them in the process. Um, because I think they just like blew their car off a road and then like, you know, ended up on the top and it killed them both instantly. Like So like he is like pretty much like the true darkness of the film, and he's obviously the one that sort of like instigated, like not like instigated, but he found the wife. Like he isn't super clueless at the end of the day, but he's sort of just like somebody who's just it's like a lot of ambiguity with that character, where it's like we don't really know what motivated him to do something like that, but it's just something so intimidating. I guess you could kind of say he was maybe a precursor to Javier Bardem and No Country for Old Men, where like we don't know what this character is doing and why he's doing it, but we just know that he's really, really intimidating and really, uh, really somebody you don't want to like cross paths with at all. So I always like found him to be like a really interesting character, and he also has like really good humorous moments, like where they break into the house and he uh like he like cuts his hand or something, and like he goes into the medical cabinet to grab some ointment, and while C. Buscemi's trying to search for Marge, not for Marge, but for the wife character, and like then and she sort of like reveals herself in the way that she didn't mean to reveal herself, but it was like sort of like there's a bit of like humorous moment, or like the soap opera he's watching, which included like a very uncredited cameo from Bruce Campbell out of all people. Um, but like yeah, you I didn't notice it, but that was Bruce Campbell. That he was watching when the soap opera show or whatever. But I love the reaction. It's like she says, "I'm pregnant," and it's like he just drops his spoon of what he's eating, and it's like it's simple, but it's like he just brings off like this level of like oddness, and like it's like an odd charm to him, but it's like an intimidating charm. It's like it's a guy I wouldn't cross, but he's just sort of hilarious in some scenes.
Yeah, I think
So
that's why. I think one reason why I kind of forgot about the fact that yeah, he did actually like kill more people in the film. You're right, but it's because it happened so quickly and unexpectedly too. And then like for majority of the movie, he's so like demure and quiet that you just kind of when he like basically snaps, it shows like oh yeah, this dude is like he is messed up. But like I said, when
mm,
he's still even then when he's in the police car, there is like it comes across as very empathetic. Like this guy is like not a good person at all, and he's done these horrible things. But the way Francis McDormand like kind of talks to him too, like you sense it like in his eyes too. Like he does realize that like yeah, I'm like a really like messed up guy basically. And then you almost it's one of those films where you kind of do feel sorry for the antagonist. I guess in that way, you don't really feel sorry for Steve Buscemi because you more just laugh at him. But yeah.
yeah,
So and I don't feel
it,
bad for Jerry either because he sucks. But
yeah. Yeah, I mean it's really interesting this how like they just create these characters and just sort of like they're just so easy to like engage with, even if there's like an ambiguous thing about them. It's like it's easy to just like you know like get engaged with what they're doing somehow and how they're trying to get through it. It's really great. I guess like a good fun fact. So like I mean obviously I didn't mention that like this was like the Lakeside Club was down the street from me. It's all the way in Matamidi, Minnesota. Big shout out to the hometown, but they didn't actually film a lot of this in Fargo, which is why you see so much of like Minneapolis being such a present part of the film. Um, because if anybody knows Minnesota winters, or and especially in the north, it's like it's the worst. Like I've been up to like northern Minnesota a couple times growing up, and the thing I just know is like like especially going near Fargo and Brainerd, it's like those places like if you try to drive through those in a snowstorm, like you're probably never gonna get out. Just because like it is so out there, and it's so dry out there, so like the whole time like you're sort of like feeling like you're in this like misty white snowy fog half the time. And so that's why they moved like a lot of it toward like, Minneapolis, St. Paul. which works because like otherwise you wouldn't get the shots that Deacons did get here. Which I'm not gonna doubt Deacon's abilities to get many of these shots because he clearly is a great cinematographer. Um, but obviously with what they were working with, like they managed to make this sort of feel like you know this very like cold place. And like having it set during the winter time was like perfect. So it all sort of felt very very Minnesota, like really Minnesota. Um, and it's like, it's because like, it's like one of those films like you would like watch when like there's like a giant snowstorm going on outside and you just want to like grab like a cup of hot chocolate or something and just like sit and watch it for an hour and a half. Because it just embraces it just embraces like its snow time, winter time theme because it just all feels like so cold and desolate, which is like perfect for like the type of story this film's telling. But sort of like realizing like the Minnesota nice really popping through and like Marge just really having that level of character interaction of everybody. Like really, it's feels you feel warm while watching it. Like that's how like whenever she's on screen, like that's how really well done it all is. But yeah, it's really nice to sort of like see like Minnesota represented in this way, and
Yeah.
it's like it's a great state, it's a great town.
Are
Um,
are there like plaques that say like, "Oh, Fargo was filmed at this location"?
there aren't, oddly enough. So although the film is called Fargo, it was not filmed in Fargo, like I mentioned before, but the Fargo Moorhead Convention Center actually has like props from the film, including like the wood chipper and I believe a part of the original script.
Oh, really?
Um,
That's neat.
but but yeah, it's not like any plaques or anything. It's not like Shawshank or Home Alone where you can easily like go to those locations to see where it's been filmed, or like Dyersville, Iowa, where you could see where Field of Dreams was filmed. Because these were actual places. I'm think the Lakeside Club is unfortunately gone now.
Oh,
But
okay.
I do believe, like, I mean, I still have the memory of it being there. I may be wrong in that instance. I admittedly I have not been up near my hometown in quite some time. Um, but yeah, like but yeah, there's like some places that are gone. There's like some others though, like the truck stop and the Blue Ox truck stop, that's still there. Like that is still around. The Embers restaurant is now like a medical center.
Oh,
um,
interesting.
yeah, and that's actually where the Coens grew up, was St. Louis Park, Minnesota. And Chanhassen Theater is still there. Like that is if there's any time anybody's ever in Minnesota and wants to like go to like a good dinner theater, to Chanhassen Dinner Theater, that's the place. It's a really good location. Um, and yeah, I mean but yeah, it's like there's a lot of it you could easily like find. And it's like yeah, like watching this film, it's like oh, I've been there, I know where this is. Um, I know this used to be here, but it's pretty easy to tell. Like I could easily tell about where 695 is and everywhere else. So it it is really amazing just like seeing how you know so much life is just given to the Twin Cities here in this film, like because this is really how Minnesota is. I mean, no, the Minnesota nice is sort of like a bit of a stereotype, but because more don't think I'm like offending anybody, but sometimes the Minnesota nice is a little bit passive aggressive.
Oh yeah,
Sometimes.
I think so. Yeah, it can't, or well, I think it can be based on kind of how the film sort of uses that to sort of mask the darkness of
Yeah.
humanity.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, there is like a bit of like, the Minnesota nice is very true. um but yeah, it does like embrace like that fact that like yeah, it is filmed in Minnesota, and it like I said, if it feels like I'm going back to my childhood like while watching this, because I could just see like the places a lot of this was filmed. I mean, but yeah, it's really awesome, I think. And if you ever like go to Minnesota, it's like it's spotting out these locations. It's really amazing. So, but
Yeah,
have you ever watched the Fargo show at all?
I
Or
actually haven't. So I was looking into it. I know it's like an anthology series,
hmm
but how is it connected to, or I know there's probably not like any direct ties to the movie, but is it just all in the same town or like the same area, basically?
it's sort of like the same type of, not like the same type of story, but sort of I guess you could argue like the first season is, because the first season is filmed in Minnesota.
Hmm.
Because it takes place in Minnesota Duluth, which is a great town, especially during the winter time. Um, but initially, with the series, it's sort of in the same idea of what the Coens were doing, where it's not like based on a true story, but more like trying to take elements of a true story and turn it into a fictional narrative. Which season one and two I think are probably the best. Season two includes Jesse Plemons and Kirsten Dunst.
Oh,
So really, really perfect time to really get that couple in as playing an actual married couple. Um, season one includes Billy Bob Thornton, Martin Freeman. Three includes Ewan McGregor. Who like I guess my family has like a loose relation to, but very, very loose. We're not related by blood.
hmm.
I don't know. I like to say I'm part Jedi. But and then season four had Chris Rock, which is probably the worst one.
Oh,
But still quality. I have not seen season five yet. But it's basically in the same idea of like just sort of trying to be this anthology story with like a sense of like dark humor, and more and not like plot ridden, but more or less just sort of like just vibes in some cases. Although I would say the show is a little more plot centric than like the film is. The film like you could like watch and it's like there are moments that are just there for like sense of humor and including that into the style. So it's like it's not quite as like story focused as people make it out to be. It's still like well written. Like it's
hmm.
really, I mean, obviously it's beautifully written. Um, but I think it's like more or less that the film like sort of like is sort of like letting you engage with this setting and these characters. And then the plot is just sort of wiggling its way in and gripping you. So I think that people really underestimate how good the script is because it is super good.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because I was always curious like what the connection was for the TV show compared to the film. But yeah, trying to think if there's anything else that I had written down that was worth bringing up. Yeah, no, it's just I really love actually the one shot of when Steve Buscemi pulls into the parking garage, and it's
Hmm
just the perfectly like untouched snow, and then the tire tracks like going through, and it's like, oh, I hope they didn't mess up because they would just have to like redo like wait God knows how long for the snow to come back. Which I mean, it's Minnesota, so it was probably well, like a day. um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
probably. I don't know. Sometimes it just sticks. I mean, it doesn't snow for a while and it becomes icy, but sometimes it'll just keep snowing.
hmm.
I guess like another shot that's like stuck out to me was I think it's like the most popular shot in the film, and it's not the wood chipper one. It's the one where as actor William H Macy has his meeting with his father-in-law, and he's walking to the parking lot, and it's just like
Oh, that's a good shot. Yeah.
yeah, it's like it's something like so beautifully bleak about it. Because it's like you're sort of like you sort of like realizing like oh how deep I'm getting into this as he's like walking slowly to his car. Um, and it's such like a good wide. Like you could tell it's very motivated. It doesn't feel
Hmm.
like it's there just for the aesthetic of it. I mean that's where Roger Deakins is smart. I mean people don't realize like Roger Deakins is not necessarily the most flashy cinematographer. out there. I mean, I guess you could say like 1917 and maybe Blade Runner 2049. But when he ever did his stuff with the Coens, like his cinematography like isn't like like you're watching like a blockbuster or whatever, but it's always like so atmospheric. It's um I guess it's like very similar to like how John Ford would frame a lot of his films, where it's like he really understood like the artistry of like the shots he was creating and letting that artistry sort of motivate the story so that it doesn't feel like it's trying to be like flashy at all.
Mhm.
um like I think that's where like the dude is a complete legend because
Yeah.
he doesn't like he knows how to like incorporate this atmosphere and this tone just for the most simplistic setups, and there's reasons why he's a master in the field of cinematography.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think like the most relatable part of the movie is actually in that scene when William H Macy walks back and when his windshield is like full of ice and he's just trying to like scrape it away. Like the obviously we're both from the Midwest, so like I'm sure we know all too well that feeling
Yeah.
of having to scrape the
Yeah.
ice off, especially when you have like a not great day. You're just like, oh, now I got to deal with this.
Yeah, and it's very symbolic of like realizing like how deep he's like, gotten into like this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like what Marge said to Geyer, it's like, you did this all just for a little bit of money. It's like so it's kind of like, that whole idea of like how this level of desperation really can put you in like the worst circumstances. Because I mean, I don't think it was ever like fully explained on like why he is doing this. Like, you think the guy could probably like find a way to get like more money in other avenues, but it just kind of shows like how the desperation really sort of like leads you to those dark edges and those dark corners.
Yeah.
And
But,
it's like cautionary. So
yeah. And also the irony too that the money that Steve Buscemi gets is like buried in the snow, but then
mhm.
they never address it after that. So it's just hidden for someone else to basically pick up. Like, right? They own.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He like because he doesn't like feel the need for it and to have so much, and it's like he's kind of realizing how deep in it he is, and he just like, yeah, I'm just gonna give Geyer my money and leave because I do not want to have any more involvement with this. And Geyer obviously is off his rocker, like kills the wife and eventually kills his partner. So it's like it really just kind of shows like how the dark sides of humanity just like really seep through that character. And I think that's like where like Buscemi like kind of comes off a little more relatable in that way, because like he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm now realizing how deep I'm going into this, and
Yeah.
Geyer is just like, you know he's in so deep that like anything he does, it's like it's just second nature to him.
Yeah, the film almost has it has like this kind of like cyclical nature too, because obviously Geyer's in jail. Jerry gets arrested too, but then the money is just there. So whoever like finds it, it's like that's sort of like, oh, they're picking up someone else's problem now, and like they gotta do something with it. Like
Hmm.
who knows? It's like it's almost left open ended in that, or well, it is open ended in that way. It's like the story ends, but there's still so much that is left on the table. Like in a good way, though. It's not. We don't need a sequel, and they're never going to do a sequel, obviously. But
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah,
I mean, you
I'm
could
sure they
argue the
were. I'm
TV
sure they were.
show, but
Yeah, I'm sure they were tempted to do that with the show, probably. But it's like
yeah,
it's cool that they didn't. They just kind of spun off the concept.
yeah, I think they more or less with the show, I believe they're more like executive producers on it. But pretty much hands off. Um, which you gotta kind of say like, if they're able to give back FX the like blessing of doing the show, I think they probably saw some potential in it. Because they weren't the creators of the show; they were just producers. Noah Hawley was the creator, but I think
Mm.
there probably was a good way to get the blessing. Hawley probably got a lot of the blessing from the Coens to do it, and the Coens were pretty much like impressed with how like the first season turned out. So, but yeah, I mean, it's great. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I guess any other thoughts on Fargo?
I'm I don't really have much else. I just think it's a great movie. Honestly, it's another movie where it's such a pop culture touchstone that it's hard to add new things to the conversation, but we could just basically embrace it for it being the great movie that it already is. So, yeah, it's up there as one of the Coen's best, probably number two to No Country for me. I think I like that one a little more, mostly because of Javier Bardem, but doesn't change the fact that it's just really just fantastic all around. Excellent script, excellent characters. The world feels so alive and real, and yeah, there's a reason why it's become such a popular film, especially in the '90s too. Like this film left an incredible impact, and I know like critically it was insanely well cleaned. I think Roger Ebert he said in his review that like Fargo was an example of a movie that reminded him why he loves movies, and it's like that's some incredibly high praise and very emblematic of just how successful the film was. So, yeah, it's a 9 out of 10. It's really awesome.
I think I'm gonna go 10 out of 10. I mean, no,
Nice.
the Coens have like created like some of the best movies like of the 90s and the 2000s. And just reasons why they're such you know, a good like one of the most iconic director duos of all time. I know they're sort of like trying to, get back on their feet by themselves now, with everything else they've released, but um, there's reasons why they work so well together. Because you could just tell like this was a collaboration. This was something that they held very deep to themselves about it, and with a really good like story to boot. With awesome performances from McDormand, Macy, Buscemi, Stormare, like just so many like iconic characters and iconic scenes. We
Hmm.
didn't even talk about Carter Burwell's score, but the
Oh
score is
yeah.
just it just really fits in so well with like the snowy environment and the coldness of this whole story. I think Carter Burwell is very underrated in that way. But yeah, like everything is just so good here, and there's like reasons why I love it. I mean, obviously from my upbringing, growing up there, in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and just like it's always takes me back to like being in that city and sort of like really understanding like the Minnesota nice now more than ever. And yeah, it's awesome. I think turn rate 10 out of 10, and yeah, it's a darn tootin' good movie. Great movie.
Yeah, you betcha.
Oh, oh yeah, you betcha. Uh, but yeah, um, I guess yeah, it's your right now.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned this filmmaker in this conversation, but I was looking through. There's a lot of if you didn't know, there's a lot of filmmakers out there, and every now and then there's ones that might slip through the cracks, and they just kind of sit on your like watch list of movies that or filmmakers that you always want to get around to. There is a very famous director and who's made a big impact that I don't believe I've seen a single one of his films, despite the impact he's left and the influence he's had. And that director is John Ford. And so I thought, why don't we finally fill in that blind spot and watch a John Ford film? And the film that I decided to choose out of his massive filmography spanning decades and decades is arguably his most famous, and that is a film from 1956 called The Searchers. So,
Oh man, that's like my late grandfather's favorite movie. Man, that is awesome.
oh, really?
Yeah. Oh
Nice.
yeah, yeah.
Have you
He
seen
was
it?
very in the West. Uh, long time ago, but I
Hmm.
think it's good to sort of like refreshing it. I mean, yeah, he likes good old good old John Wayne, and yeah, just gonna be interesting to like really dive back into some nostalgia there. If you would like to listen to us talk about Searchers by the great American director John Ford, and don't want to get spoiled for the next episode, watch the film before we release it, which will be about every other Monday. Depending on if the World Cup subsides at that point. We publish every other Monday on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And if you're listening on either of those, feel free to hit us with a follow. And if you're on YouTube, hit us with a subscribe and like button if you want more content. And of course, hit the bell icon if you want to get notified um, whenever there's a new episode out. And if you haven't already, you can follow us on social media. We have those at the link in the description. And yeah, basically much of it. I admit I'm still pooped. I got Norwegians and I don't know how you pronounce Cote d'Ivoire's citizens, but I got that game tomorrow. But as at the time of recording this, but a little bit flubbed. Oh boy. But um but yeah, in this case I've been Daniel.
And I've been Matthew.
And I hope you all have a good rest of your week, and I hope I sleep well.
You betcha.
Oh yeah, for sure.